Chapter 60-71. The three of them just stared dumbly at Han Jingjing for an hour, not moving at all during that time. It was a pity that Han Jingjing's body didn't change at all other than that faint layer of light. It seems that the God-gathering branch can't bring Jingjing back. Lin Yi sighed and couldn't hide the slight disappointment on his face. It wasn't easy to get the God-gathering branch this time, so he had great expectations. Lin Yi, don't worry too much. Maybe the God-gathering branch has already taken effect, but it will take a few days or even a few months to bring Jingjing back. It's too early to make a conclusion now. Tianchan also felt a little regretful, but she quickly composed herself and began to comfort Lin Yi. Yes, Lin Yi, Jingjing will be fine. The God-gathering branch has already taken effect on her, but it will take a little longer. Let's wait patiently. Maybe Jingjing will wake up tomorrow? Sydney also gently comforted Lin Yi. Like Tianchan, she was very grateful that Han Jingjing could go to the secular world to save Lin Yi, so she sincerely hoped that the God-gathering branch could bring Han Jingjing back. But in the current situation, in order not to let Lin Yi be too disappointed, the two of them could only try their best to hide the regret in their hearts. You're right. Maybe it's not time yet. Let's wait for a few more days. Lin Yi smiled slightly and could only use this reason to convince himself. Originally, he planned to set off for the South Continent as soon as possible after using the God-gathering branch to wake Han Jingjing up. But now he was worried and had to wait for a few more days to see what would happen. In the northernmost island, the God-gathering branch had caused a commotion. Hao Zili and others chased after Lin Yi to get it, but they were counterattacked by Lin Yi. If people knew that Lin Yi left the God-gathering branch in the Tiandan Pavilion, he couldn't guarantee that no one would attack the Tiandan Pavilion when he was not there. In the next few days, Lin Yi stayed in Han Jingjing's room to see if there was any change in her. He also refined some elixirs for the Tiandan Pavilion to continue selling. As for Lenguza and others, they were familiar with Tianchan and Sydney and helped them. But except for Lenguza, no one was allowed to go to the second floor to see Lin Yi. Seeing that there was no change in Han Jingjing after a few days, Lin Yi inevitably felt a little anxious. Although the God-gathering branch was precious, it seemed to have no effect on Han Jingjing's condition at present. If he continued to wait, the hope was quite slim. In fact, Lin Yi felt very guilty. He shouldn't have let Han Jingjing return to the Heaven Stage Island on her own. He knew that she used a deceptive method to come to the secular world. When she returned, he should have let her directly enter the space of the Jade Pendant. Although there might be problems with the integration after returning to the Heaven Stage Island, it was countless times safer than the current situation. Tianchan, is there any reply from the secular world from the Central Chamber of Commerce? Lin Yi was annoyed. When he saw Tianchan come up, he couldn't help but ask again. He had asked this question 4 or 5 times in the past few days. As long as he could receive a reply from the secular world, he might be able to know the news of Han Jingjing. If she really stayed in the secular world and couldn't come back, Lin Yi would find time to return to the secular world and directly use the space of the Jade Pendant to bring her to the Heaven Stage Island. No, these days I asked Min Huichan to go to the Central Chamber of Commerce 3 times a day to ask for a reply from the secular world. Unfortunately, they haven't received it. Maybe Lai Changyi is still investigating this matter, and I can't give the exact news for a while. Tianchan pretended to be indifferent to comfort Lin Yi. In fact, she was a little uncertain in her heart. People from the secular world needed time to investigate, which meant that Han Jingjing didn't stay in the villa, which was really not good news. Lin Yi became more and more annoyed. He should have set off to the South Continent, but he couldn't go to the South Continent to do things without definite news about Han Jingjing. Is that bastard Kong Xiaoming purposely stalling for time so that we don't get our reply? No, I have to go to the Central Chamber of Commerce in person. Lin Yi decided to go to Kong Mingming personally to pressure him, but he also knew that the possibility was not high. With Zhong Pingliang watching from above, it wouldn't be easy for Kong Mingming to secretly detain the reply to Lin Yi from the secular world. Lin Yi's main purpose of going to the Central Chamber of Commerce this time was to ask Zhong Pingliang to find a way to find out about the situation in the secular world. Maybe he would have more detailed information. Tian-chan didn't have any opinion on this and nodded in agreement. Go. Jingjing will be fine with us taking care of her. Lin-Yi, I need your help. As they were talking, the will of heaven quickly came up from the stairs. Seeing Lin-Yi coming out of the room, he immediately waved his hand to greet him. Tiandan Pavilion had always been taken care of by the will of heaven, so there were no restrictions on him. He could come and go, at any time. Tian bro, if there's anything you need, just tell me. As long as I can help, I won't say no. Lin-Yi was still very respectful towards Tianqing, so he agreed without hesitation. As for going to the Central Chamber of Commerce, he could only put it off for now. If Zhong Pingliang had any news, he would find a way to inform him immediately. How's Jingjing? Is she getting better? The will of heaven didn't directly state the purpose of his visit. Instead, he asked about Han Jingjing's situation. In fact, he came to visit Han Jingjing when he was free. He more or less understood that the effect of the spirit concentrating branch wasn't as good as he imagined. There's no change. Lin-Yi sighed softly and approached the will of heaven. Brother Tian, what do you need my help with? Well, I shouldn't have come to you at this time, but only you can help me with this. It's about the creation battle art. The will of heaven didn't hide anything and directly stated his purpose of visit. What's wrong with the creation battle art? Lin-Yi was a little puzzled. Did the will of heaven have a problem practicing the creation battle art? I found the clues to the follow-up of the creation battle art. However, that place requires at least 2 people who have practiced the creation battle art to enter. So, I can only ask for your help. In the entire Heavenly Island, I really can't find a second person besides you. The will of heaven was also helpless. It could be said that he had been looking for the follow-up of the creation battle art his whole life. Finally, he had a clue, but he found that he couldn't enter alone. This kind of depression couldn't be described easily. Chapter 60-72. In other words, if he could not find the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art, he would only be able to reach this level for the rest of his life. The follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art? Where is it? Lin-Yi was slightly startled. This matter could not be delayed. Although the follow-up mental cultivation method of the original version of the creation battle art was not very useful to him, it was completely different to the will of heaven. It's on a nameless, deserted island in the sea near the middle island. If everything goes well, we can come back in a day or 2. The will of heaven knew that Lin-Yi agreed to help, so he was a little excited. Lin-Yi did not know why the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art would be on a nameless, deserted island, but it did not matter as long as it was true. With the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art, Lin-Yi could also verify it with the heaven-seizing battle art. Maybe he could make more discoveries. In that case, let's not delay. Let's go and come back early. Lin-Yi immediately made a decision. It was only a day or 2, so it should not affect them. At the Tiandan Pavilion, Languza and the other 3 masters at the mountain opening stage would be safe for a short time. Lin-Yi even left the 4 of them here to protect Han Jingjing and the God-gathering branch when he was considering going to the South Continent. Languza, Brother Tian, and I will go out for a day or 2. Take the 3 of them to protect the Tiandan Pavilion. If anyone dares to cause trouble, don't hold back. Lin-Yi saw Languza when he went downstairs, so he immediately called him over and whispered to him. Languza nodded and patted his chest hard. Boss, don't worry. There will be no problem here. But boss, where are you going this time? Do you need to fight? Do you want me to go with you? No, you just need to do what I say. Lin-Yi smiled faintly. After being idle for a few days, this guy was probably itching to fight again. Unfortunately, there really wasn't any chance for him to fight this time. He just needed to go to the island and find something. After giving a few instructions, Lin-Yi followed the will of heaven out of the Tiandan Pavilion. As one of the deputy island masters of Middle Island, the will of heaven had the privilege of using flying spirit beasts at any place. Therefore, there were 2 flying spirit beasts raised by Middle Island officials waiting at the entrance, which saved Lin-Yi the trouble of using the flying saucer. The 2 of them immediately rode on their flying spirit beasts and soared into the sky, flying towards the deserted island that the will of heaven had mentioned. The middle island's waters were extremely vast. With the speed of the flying spirit beasts, after traveling for half a day, they were still at the core of the middle island's waters. There were countless large and small deserted islands scattered on the surface of the sea. When the tide rose, at least half of them would sink into the sea and become submerged reefs. Only when the tide fell would the islands appear. It's there. The will of heaven on the flying spirit beast pointed to a deserted island in the distance. It was now the tide fell. The deserted island he was talking about was only about 1 square kilometer in size. The slope was very low, and it was likely to sink into the sea when the tide rose. Linny nodded and extended his divine sense to carefully search every inch of the deserted island. If not for the guidance of the will of heaven, he would never pay attention to this kind of small island that could be seen everywhere in the sea. Brother Heaven, how did you find this place? Linny didn't ask about this along the way. He was only thinking about how to bring Han Jingjing back to Heavenly Island. Only now did he remember that he should ask about the situation. It's also a coincidence. Recently, when I was wandering around the market, I actually found an incomplete ancient book. It mentioned a genius about 10,000 years ago who was also famous for cultivating the creation battle art. Then, in order to advance to the Earth opening stage, he came to a deserted island in this sea for seclusion. He may have left the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art. The will of heaven didn't hide anything and told Lin Yi the source of the information. Lin Yi was speechless. This kind of vague record, but the will of heaven could treat it as real. It showed how urgent his desire for the creation battle art was. He was simply not willing to let go of any possibility. This time, he really found the exact location. This sea was so vast, and there were at least 800 islands of different sizes, not including the small islands that had not surfaced for 10,000 years. The will of heaven spent a lot of effort to find this deserted island. Lin Yi could totally imagine how much effort it took for him to find this deserted island. So, Brother Heaven, you can't be sure that this island will have the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art? Lin Yi sighed softly. The will of heaven might have found the place where the genius from 10,000 years ago went into seclusion, but that person might not have left the mental cultivation method behind. No, I think there's a 90% chance that it's true. That's because the ancient book had mentioned that ever since that genius came here to undergo closed-door training, he never appeared again. It's very likely that he failed his advancement and died in the closed-door training grounds. Therefore, his mental cultivation method must have been left there. Tian Xing spoke with certainty. At the same time, he had already controlled the flying spiritual beast to descend. After a while, the two arrived above the deserted island. Lin Yi's divine sense vaguely found traces of a concealment array on this island. The level was not low. It was at least arranged by an Earth rank array master above level 7. Usually, if Lin Yi didn't pay attention, he wouldn't have found it at all. This was because the concealment array had been damaged. If it was in good condition, it would never be exposed unless the ghost personally used divine sense to explore it. In that case, the possibility of the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art is very high. Since that person could advance to the Earth opening stage, at least it is more complete than the one in our hands. But if he failed to advance and fell, this mental cultivation method might still have flaws. Lin Yi jumped off the flying spirit beast and stood beside the will of heaven. The flaws of the creation battle art didn't matter to Lin Yi, but the will of heaven had to be careful when practicing it. The next time something happened, he might not be able to stay alive. Let's not talk about this first. As long as we can find the follow-up cultivation method, what's a trivial flaw? The will of heaven laughed and didn't care about it. Lin Yi smiled slightly and immediately felt relieved. If the will of heaven was really afraid of the flaws of the creation battle art, he wouldn't have chosen to practice this mental cultivation method in the first place. It was because of his heroic character that he was very compatible with the creation battle art. If it was someone else who was cautious and indecisive, there was no way for him to practice the creation battle art. Chapter 73. Lin Yi smiled and nodded in agreement. The will of heaven was indeed lucky. If the concealment formation hadn't been damaged, he probably wouldn't have been able to find this place even if he searched for another 100 years in this sea region with his formation skills. The restriction formation in front of them had reached the standard of a level 7 formation, and it was a rather rare technique. As the will of heaven had said, it required 2 people who cultivated in the creation-type battle art to activate their true chi in 2 directions at the same time to open the entrance. Brother Heaven, don't you think it's a little strange? That person is in seclusion to advance, so why would he set up such a formation? He's alone. Is there a need to set up a restriction that requires 2 people who cultivated in the creation-type battle art to work together to enter? Lin Yi paced back and forth a few steps, pinching his chin as he looked at the will of heaven in confusion. The will of heaven was slightly stunned. He really hadn't thought about this problem. In fact, he didn't have much research in the field of formations. He only knew that this restriction required 2 people who cultivated in the creation-type battle art to work together because of the hint he received after trying it. Is there something strange here? After being reminded by Lin Yi, the will of heaven also felt that this setting was very strange. After thinking for a while, he said resolutely, Lin Yi, let's go back. We haven't solved Jingjing's problem yet, so we'll talk about this later. Brother Heaven, you want to send me back and take the risk alone, right? It says that 2 people are needed to open this place. You can't go in alone. Lin Yi looked at the will of heaven speechlessly. This person wasn't a scheming person, so he could tell what he was thinking at a glance. When he heard that this place might be strange, he didn't want Lin Yi to take the risk, so he continued to study alone. Unfortunately, the excuse he came up with was too lousy. How about this? Help me open the restriction first, then you can go back. I want to explore alone, and don't want to share everything inside with you. The will of heaven looked at Lin Yi very seriously, as if what he said was the truth. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. When did the will of heaven become so sentimental? That's enough, my big brother. Don't talk nonsense with me. Let's break the restriction formation and see what's going on inside. Lin Yi shook his head and began to study the structure of the restriction formation. Ha ha ha, forget it. The will of heaven, am not suited to speak such empty words. As expected, you saw through me in an instant. So what if it was strange? If you and I join hands, all demons and monsters will be annihilated. The will of heaven threw his head back and laughed. He had regained some of his previous heroic demeanor. This formation is quite advanced. Apart from 2 cultivators of the creation battle art joining hands, if you want to enter, you can only break the formation by force. But that would require the attack power of at least the late stage of Earth Opening to the great completion of Earth Opening. It seems that the 2 of us can only choose the first way. Lin Yi smiled slightly and took the initiative to walk to a formation door. In fact, if Lin Yi came alone, there was also a chance that he could enter. For example, he could use the Wood Forest 1000 transformations to create a doppelganger. At the same time, he could use the Heaven's Fortune battle art to open the restriction formation. Another way was to use the lightning escape technique to teleport back and forth between 2 positions, creating an illusion of transferring genuine chi at the same time. But this method was much more difficult. The will of heaven didn't have this kind of martial arts, so he had never thought about it. While Lin Yi was studying it, he had thought of countless ways to crack it. Unfortunately, there were only a few that could work. I asked you to come here because I want you to choose the first way. The will of heaven laughed and strode in another direction, facing Lin Yi. The 2 of them looked at each other and smiled. At the same time, they stretched out their palms, pressed on the position of the formation door, and began to transfer the genuine chi of the creation battle art. Although Lin Yi's Heaven's Fortune battle art had been mutated, his genuine chi itself was omnipotent genuine chi. If he wanted to return to the orthodox creation battle art, it was not difficult at all. In just about a breath of time, the restriction formation in front of him made a soft sound, revealing a passage that could allow 1 person to walk normally. Well, let's go in. This entrance can only last for 3 breaths. Lin Yi said to the will of heaven, and was ready to enter first. I'll go first. The will of heaven rushed forward and rushed into the passage before Lin Yi. If it was someone else, they might think that the will of heaven was very impolite, as if he was worried that others would rob him of his things. However, Lin Yi knew that the will of heaven was afraid that there was danger inside, so he walked in front, with the intention of walking into a landmine for Lin Yi. In terms of strength, the current Lin Yi far surpassed the will of heaven. However, because Lin Yi was the one who asked Lin Yi to help before the will of heaven fell, he must not allow any damage to happen to Lin Yi. Be careful. Lin Yi did not say much, but reminded with a faint smile. He followed behind the will of heaven, and his divine sense penetrated into the passage first, carefully observing for any abnormalities. After entering the array prohibition, the scene in front of him changed. It looked like a huge rock from the outside, but now it was a stone staircase deep underground. Lin Yi's divine sense could only explore a few dozen meters, and he could not see the bottom of the stone staircase. Obviously, there was an arrangement to restrict divine sense. Lin Yi, you are right. This is indeed a bit strange. Ordinary people would not go deep underground when they do closed-door training, especially our creation battle art, which is a first-class heart cultivation method. Only by getting closer to the sun, moon, and stars can we feel the awe-inspiring righteousness between heaven and earth, so as to increase the speed of cultivation. It seems that there are some errors in the ancient records. The will of heaven also became more and more suspicious of the authenticity of this place. However, with his character, since he was already here, of course, he had to find out the truth. Maybe that genius failed to advance and fell here because he went deep underground to train? Lin Yi said with a smile, and his divine sense began to try to break the prohibition here. The divine sense vortex attack method was very effective in tearing the divine sense prohibition. In a short time, the exploration range of Lin Yi's divine sense expanded several times, and finally, he could see the end of the stone staircase. All the way down, there were at least 2,000 or 3,000 stone steps, and from the distance, it was estimated that it was about 1,000 meters deep under the sea. The will of heaven operated all the genuine qi in his body to maintain a state of defense, and did not dare to neglect the slightest. However, along the way, nothing happened. It seemed that this long stone staircase was just an ordinary stone staircase, and there were no traps. Chapter 60-74. The two of them soon came to the end of the stone steps. There was a bronze door that was tightly shut, but the material was obviously not as simple as bronze. There was no restriction on it that could block divine sense, but Lin Yi's divine sense could not penetrate it. The will of heaven raised his hand and motioned for Lin Yi to temporarily stop on the stone steps. Then, he came to the front of the bronze door, stretched out his palm that was wrapped in genuine qi, and gently stroked the surface of the door. The rust on the surface rustled under the influence of the will of heaven's genuine qi and slowly revealed mysterious lines. Lin Yi did not stand behind as he was told, but silently came to the side of the will of heaven and carefully looked at the lines. The will of heaven glanced at Lin Yi beside him and did not say anything, but his heart raised a bit of vigilance. If there was any danger, he must first ensure the safety of Lin Yi. As for the fact that Lin Yi was stronger than him, he completely ignored it. Did you see anything? The will of heaven's palm continued to slowly and steadily stroke the surface of the door, revealing more lines. It looks like a door opening array pattern. It's not too difficult. It's about the same as before. All we need to do is to inject our primary energy in different places. But this time, we need to inject our primary energy into 4 points. So, we need to use our hands separately. Lin Yi smiled slightly, and then pointed out the 4 points that needed to input genuine qi, and took the lead to choose 2 points and put his hand on them. In fact, Lin Yi was more interested in the material of the door. It could directly block the penetration of divine sense. If he sent it to the Junk King, he could make a lot of good things. Unfortunately, now was not the time to dismantle the door. The will of heaven stopped the cleaning work, which was less than 30% left, and directly put his hands on the other 2 points that Lin Yi pointed out. At the same time, the 2 people input the genuine chi of the battle art of creation, and sure enough, the bronze door began to slowly open. Lin Yi's divine sense swept through the open gap. Inside was a stone room about 100 square meters, more than 6 meters high. There was nothing special. It looked very empty. On the wall opposite the bronze door, there were 3 2-meter-high stone caves arranged in a triangular shape, but there was a restriction at the cave entrance, and Lin Yi's divine sense could not break it for a while. After the bronze door was half open, it was enough for them to pass. The will of heaven took the lead and quickly glanced around, and found no danger, then let the door open and let Lin Yi in. Lin Yi was also speechless. The will of heaven had always treated him as a person to be protected along the way, and to be honest, he was not used to it. But for the kindness of the will of heaven, Lin Yi could not say anything more. Those 3 stone caves. Maybe they're the places where the geniuses practice according to the ancient records. Let's go in and see. The will of heaven strode forward, and soon came to the bottom of the cave in the stone wall. The restriction here only blocked the divine sense, but it could not stop people, so he only needed to jump in. This was what Lin Yi felt strange about. It was obviously a place for private seclusion. Was it necessary to set up this kind of restriction to block other people's divine sense from prying? Even if it was to be set up, it would be more appropriate to prevent people from accidentally breaking in, right? Brother Heaven, wait a minute. These stone caves are a bit strange. Lin Yi raised his voice to stop the will of heaven from entering the stone cave. He was ready to break the restriction first and explore with his divine sense. Is there anything wrong? The will of heaven turned back to ask Lin Yi, but just saw a gray air mass rising under the feet of Lin Yi, who walked to the middle position and suddenly exclaimed, "Be careful." Lin Yi's heart jumped. His divine sense checked back and forth in this empty place and did not find any danger, so his attention was focused on the 3 stone caves with divine sense restriction. He did not expect that there was such a hidden mechanism in the most central place. The strange thing was that the space of the jade pendant did not give any warning this time. Lin Yi even wondered if there was something wrong, but then he knew why there was no warning, because it was not dangerous for him at all. Jie, a young man at the peak of the late stage of mysterious ascension, there is no more suitable body than this. The gray air mass made a sharp, strange laugh, and instantly enveloped Lin Yi's body, and then desperately penetrated into the direction of his sea of consciousness. Possession. Lin Yi could not help but secretly laugh. No wonder the space of the jade pendant did not even bother to send out a warning. He could be afraid of anything, but really not afraid of possession. Not to mention other things, just this ghostly thing, the ancestor-level character of the primordial spirit, is enough to make people who want to possess a good drink. Not to mention Lin Yi himself is proficient in the primordial spirit devouring. Want to possess him? Are you sure it is not coming to him to be a dish? As for the soul hook hand, divine sense vortex, and so on, Lin Yi was too lazy to use them. Of course, the primordial spirit devouring Lin Yi did not want to use it easily. The cleaning up after Li Shuigao's soul search has not been completed. He does not want to make his mind a mess. A layer of small lightning arc appeared on the surface of Lin Yi's body in an instant, making a slight crackling sound. The primordial spirit that wanted to possess Lin Yi suddenly screamed, as if it had seen a ghost, and frantically escaped from Lin Yi's body. You are actually a thunder-type cultivator. The gray mass of air became slightly thinner. Its voice was filled with unconcealable fear. For a primordial spirit, what is the most terrifying opponent? Is there a need to ask? Besides alchemy fire, it is thunder-type cultivator. This is the existence that can easily destroy a primordial spirit. Even if it is the primordial spirit devouring, it is ranked behind the thunder. Sorry, I just happen to know a little thunder-type attack. Why don't you try again? Maybe you can succeed. Lin Yi looked at the primordial spirit playfully, roughly guessing some of the ins and outs of this matter. The information found by the will of heaven should be true, but it is not complete. This primordial spirit is most likely that genius. He left that record to attract people who practice the creation battle art to find him, and then take the opportunity to possess a body and be reborn. If his guess was correct, this primordial spirit already knew that his physical body was about to be destroyed, so he set up this trap. The entrance condition of the formation was also to restrict the person who entered to someone who had cultivated the creation battle art. This way, after he took over the body, he would be able to connect seamlessly. Why was there no danger along the way? Now it was easy to explain. It was not easy to get a body to possess. How could he bear to kill or injure it? As for the divine sense restriction on the stone cave, it was probably to divert the attention of the person who entered. Lin Yi was very unfortunate to be trapped. If not for the fact that he was not afraid of possession, he would have been successfully possessed by the primordial spirit. Chapter 60-75. If that really happened, they could only be hooked into the space together and let that ghost thing help them separate. These thoughts just flashed through Lin Yi's mind, but it already made him feel a sense of enlightenment. After the soul possession of Lin Yi failed, without saying a word, the soul instantly rushed to the will of heaven. Limiting 2 people to come in was to prepare for one to fail, then another. His arrangement can be said to be precise, but unfortunately, after waiting for 10,000 years, Lin Yi, such an abnormal person, came. With a flash of lightning, Lin Yi directly appeared in front of the soul, raised his hand and shot out a ball of lightning, using his spiritual sense to control it to form a lightning net, completely wrapping the gray mass in it. Any trace of gas that came into contact with the lightning net would be instantly destroyed. Continuous screams came from within the lightning net. After suffering a few losses, the soul immediately retracted the mass of gas and no longer dared to touch the outer lightning net easily. Lin Yi, you are really strong now. The will of heaven stood behind Lin Yi dumbfounded. He still wanted to rescue Lin Yi, but in the blink of an eye, everything was settled. In addition to sighing at Lin Yi's strength, the will of heaven really didn't know what else he could say. Oh, brother heaven, you flatter me. There are countless powerful cultivators outside. My strength is not enough. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He was really not modest. He had seen the strength of the sea-splitting stage. A mere peak profound ascension late stage was really not much different from an ant. Junior, you are very self-aware. If you weren't a lightning cultivator, you would have been possessed by me long ago. Hurry up and let me go, and you will be rewarded handsomely. The primordial spirit didn't seem to understand the situation it was in, and it clamored arrogantly. Lin Yi directly separated a small lightning arc from the lightning net and fell on his body, causing a trace of gray gas to explode, causing the soul to scream again. You dare to say that you want to possess me? It seems that you are really not afraid of my lightning arc. Lin Yi looked at the soul in the lightning net with a smile. He really didn't understand where this guy's confidence came from.
Kid,
don't be complacent. If you dare to continue to do this to me, we will die together. I am not afraid to tell you. I have arranged a level 9 trap and kill array here. If there is no suppression of my soul, it will break out at any time. If you don't believe me, you can try. After the soul stopped screaming, it didn't show any signs of softening. Instead, it threatened Lin Yi even more fiercely. Lin Yi suddenly changed a little, a level 9 array. He really couldn't see it. Even if it was a ghost, he was afraid that it would not be easy to break it in a short time. There was no need for Lin Yi to speak. The ghost's divine sense had already spread out, and in an instant, it repeatedly scanned the space. Kid, this fool is right. There is indeed a level 9 array here. I really didn't notice it if I didn't check carefully. The good news is that this level 9 trap and kill array should be just a formation plate. Its power is countless times weaker than the starfall array. The bad news is that even if it is countless times weaker than the starfall array, it is still very easy to kill you instantly. The ghost was very efficient, immediately giving professional advice, but why did Lin Yi listen to it? He felt a little gloating, ignoring the ghost. Lin Yi reached out and grabbed and put away the lightning net. The soul thought that its threat had worked and suddenly wanted to continue to be arrogant. But suddenly, an invisible hand completely grabbed it, and it could not move at all. There was no doubt that this was Lin Yi's ultimate skill, the soul hooking hand. Originally, He did not intend to use this skill, but since there was a level 9 trap and kill array plate here, he could not hold back and must ensure his safety. I don't think you will tell me how to break this trap and kill array plate, right? So, I decided to do as you said and try to find the answer myself. Lin Yi smiled slightly, thinking about whether to use the Spirit Devour or Soul Search to deal with this soul. Both were not his favorite methods. It was really a dilemma. How do you know that this trap and kill array is a formation plate? The soul was slightly stunned, and subconsciously asked Lin Yi, carefully recalling what it had said just now. It did not seem to mention the words array plate. Before it could figure it out, the soul imprisoned by the soul-hooking hand felt a faint pulling force coming from Lin Yi's direction. Spirit Devour? This guy was really experienced. With just a slight feeling, he immediately recognized the skill that Lin Yi was using and at the same time screamed, "Stop! Stop! I admit defeat. I surrender." Feeling the threat of the Spirit Devour, the soul immediately panicked. Lin Yi's lightning arcs were indeed terrifying, but he relied on the level 9 trap and kill array plate. Once he was seriously injured, he would perish together with Lin Yi, so he still had the confidence to be arrogant. Spirit Devour was different. Although the pain was much lighter than the lightning arcs, if the soul was devoured by Lin Yi, the level 9 trap and kill array plate bound to the soul would definitely not be triggered. In other words, if he died in vain, why must he die? Heh. I thought you were tough. It turns out that you are only SOSO. Lin Yi looked at the soul mockingly and did not continue to use Spirit Devour. In the end, Lin Yi really did not want to casually devour those messy soul. He felt that his sea of consciousness would become a sea of garbage. Since you have surrendered, then hand over the control of the level 9 trap and kill array first. Lin Yi was not going to be polite. The level 9 trap and kill array plate was definitely a good thing. The level 8 concealment array plate he snatched was already extremely precious, but compared to the current one, it was directly trash. The soul was also not long-winded, knowing that he was unable to resist, so he simply and neatly removed the binding to the trap and kill array plate, handing over the control. Why can't I take out this array plate? Lin Yi wanted to put away the trap and kill array plate directly, but found that he could control it, but he could not put away the array plate. Suddenly, his face became a little ugly. Because this array plate has been set up for too long, it is already integrated with this place. If you want to take it out, you have to destroy this place, but if you destroy this place, you can't keep the array plate. The soul explained carefully, for fear that Lin Yi would use Spirit Devour, Thunder Net Attack, and so on. Lin Yi was suddenly speechless. A level 9 trap and kill array plate. He could only see it but not take it. He thought that he had made a fortune this time, but in the end, it was still like drawing water with a wicker basket. Chapter 60-76. My name is Wang Ba. The creation battle art is in the stone room where I cultivate. Actually, what I have is not the complete version of the creation battle art. I can only cultivate it to the great completion of the earth opening realm because I don't have the follow-up mental cultivation method. That's why my body collapsed and only my primordial spirit survived for 10,000 years. The primordial spirit, Wang Ba, sighed. According to the information that the will of heaven had found, this guy came to cultivate in seclusion to advance to the earth opening realm. It was obviously a lie. In fact, he already had the strength of the great completion of the earth opening realm. 10,000-year-old tortoise. Quite a good match for you. Lin Yi's mouth twitched. Was this guy here to make fun of him? It's Wang Ba. Wang Ba from the Wang Ba Empire. Not tortoise. Wang Ba shouted angrily. Then, he remembered that he was not facing a kind person, so he quickly lowered his voice. He was extremely nervous, afraid that a few lightning arcs would suddenly appear. I don't care if you're Wang Ba or tortoise. Just hand over the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art. Lin Yi waved his hand indifferently. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked suspiciously, 10,000-year-old tortoise, the creation battle art that's passed down on Heaven Level Island can only be cultivated to the great completion of the nascent soul realm. Don't tell me that it's all you're doing. Don't lie. You know I can find the truth myself. You can even guess that? He's simply too brilliant and mighty. Wang Ba did not dare to hide anything. He quickly flattered Lin Huang and carefully explained, actually, 10,000 years ago, the creation battle art was only the incomplete version in my hands. No one else cultivated it except me. So, even if I wanted to possess someone at that time, there was no suitable person. So, you made the incomplete creation battle art even more incomplete, and then spread it out in large quantities. You also left behind such an obscure message to attract people who cultivated the creation battle art to find the follow-up mental cultivation method, so that you could seize the opportunity to possess them? Lin Yi sneered and interrupted Wang Ba. He had more or less figured out what had happened. This bastard Wang Ba was really ruthless. In order to leave a way out for himself if he failed to break through to the sea-splitting stage, Wang Ba purposely spread the creation battle art. As long as someone saw this kind of peerless mental cultivation method, there would be people who could not help but cultivate it. Even if they knew it was a trap, they would still jump into it involuntarily. Just like when Lin Yi first came into contact with the creation battle arts, those fellows in the same batch did not even have the courage to flip through the creation battle arts and directly destroyed the creation battle arts that were distributed to them. There was a reason for this. In the past 10,000 years, it was unknown how many people had cultivated the creation battle art but could only helplessly perish when they reached the nascent soul stage. The will of heaven was lucky to have met Lin Yi, otherwise he would have been a cripple and could not escape the fate of dying in depression. Once someone cultivated the creation battle art, they would definitely continue to search for the subsequent mental cultivation arts, such as the will of heaven. Unfortunately, that bastard Wang Ba was really unlucky. In the past 10,000 years, only the will of heaven had found this place. Lin Yi even suspected that the damage to the concealment formation outside was not caused by the passage of time. In order to make people pretend to have found this place after much effort, it was highly possible that the bastard Wang Ba had done this on purpose. Otherwise, the entrance to the second layer of the formation would not have given people a hint so easily. You're really amazing. You're definitely smart. It was an absolutely flawless plan. Absolutely. Wang Ba was secretly shocked, but he kept praising Lin Yi. Although he suspected that he was flattering Lin Yi, it was a true reflection of the shock in his heart. With just a few words, Lin Yi had made such an accurate deduction. What exactly was this young man's background? He was too crazy. Not only was he crazy in terms of strength, but he was also crazy in terms of his meticulous thinking. Lin Yi did not think that he was that great. The reason he could deduce so many things was not only because he had a lot of clues, but also because he had a clear view of things as a bystander. In addition, he had a flash of inspiration just now. It was impossible for him to analyze and deduce like this all the time. Lin Yi, you're saying that everything about the creation battle art was a trap set up by Wang Ba? The shock in the will of heaven's heart was no less than Wang Ba's since the beginning. Now that he had finally sorted out his thoughts, he still looked like he could not believe it. That's right. Brother Tian, if you want to beat him up to vent your anger, I can help you. Lin Yi smiled. No matter who it was, they would feel uncomfortable when they heard that the mental cultivation method that they cultivated with their life was just a bait thrown by someone else on purpose. Even a bold person like the will of heaven would not be an exception. That was why Lin Yi made such a suggestion. If the will of heaven could beat Wang Ba up in exchange for a clear mind, it would be beneficial for his future cultivation. Ha ha ha, there's no need for that. I won't be angry. If he hadn't spread the creation battle art on purpose, how would I have the chance to cultivate it? Didn't you hear him say that he was the only one who had the creation battle art 10,000 years ago? Luckily, he released the first part. Otherwise, the creation battle art would have been lost 10,000 years ago. The will of heaven laughed and waved his hand as if he really did not mind it at all. Not only was he not unhappy that the creation battle art he cultivated was only an incomplete one, he even felt lucky. Brother Tian, you're so open-minded. Lin Yi praised him with a smile and continued to ask Wang Ba, which cave is the next part of the mental cultivation method of the creation battle art? Is there anything good in the other two? Wang Ba smiled bitterly. The one at the top is the stone room that I used for cultivation. There's nothing else. My cultivation is not enough at all. How can I get anything good? Otherwise, I wouldn't have risked my life to advance to the sea-splitting stage. Besides, 10,000 years have passed. Even if there was anything good, it would have been destroyed by now. 10,000 years ago, the great completion of Earth opening stage was not considered a great power, unlike now. Apart from the East continent, the Earth opening stage was considered a big shot. They were the strongest existence after the old monsters in the ancient families. However, Lin Yi wouldn't believe Wang Ba's words just like that. 10,000 years old bastard, I told you not to lie. Do you really want to try the primordial spirit devouring? Lin Yi raised his hand and stared at Wang Ba with a faint smile. As long as this guy insisted that there was nothing, he would use the primordial spirit devouring without hesitation. Chapter 77. Apparently, Wang Ba also thought of this. He panicked and could not help begging for mercy. I can give you anything, as long as you don't take the Dark Sea soul-condensing fluid away. It's all because of the Dark Sea soul-condensing fluid that I can survive. Why would a guy who cultivated the creation battle art choose a place deep underground for seclusion? The truth was finally revealed. It was because only here could there be the Black Sea soul-condensing fluid that could nourish the primordial spirit. In fact, Lin Yi had found it strange at the beginning. How could a primordial spirit retain such a powerful strength after 10,000 years? He knew it when he encountered the ghost. Later, when he found that he could not take the formation plate away, he realized that the level 9 trap and kill formation here had another function, which was to protect the small mass of Black Sea soul-condensing fluid. Wang Ba was not lying. If he had not had the Black Sea soul-condensing fluid, his primordial spirit would have been at the foundation establishment stage after his body collapsed after failing to break through to the sea-splitting stage. How could he have possessed others? After 10,000 years, the primordial spirit of a foundation establishment stage cultivator should have dissipated for many years. Although this guy had been restrained by Lin Yi, his primordial spirit was still at the peak of the early stage of the Earth creation stage. It was probably because of the Black Sea soul-condensing fluid that he could cultivate to such a level in 10,000 years. Boy, the Black Sea soul-condensing fluid is good stuff. It's not only useful for me, but also for you. Don't let go of such a treasure. The ghost was also excited and could not help reminding Lin Yi. If he had obtained such a mass of Black Sea soul-condensing fluid in the secular world, he would have recovered his original strength. Even if he was just a primordial spirit, he would still be able to dominate the world. As long as he did not encounter a freakish cultivator like Lin Yi who specialized in restraining primordial spirits. If you had told me the truth, I might have considered leaving you half of the Black Sea soul-condensing fluid. Unfortunately, you didn't cherish it. Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He waved his fist and released a stream of genuine qi to open the ground in the center, revealing a small jade trough. With a gentle wave of his hand, Lin Yi's genuine qi wrapped the ball of light golden Dark Sea soul-condensing liquid and flew into the air. Then, he divided it into small balls and put it into 10 exquisite jade bottles. Wang Ba watched all this happen, but he did not dare to move at all. Lin Yi's methods restrained him too much. It was painful to lose the Xianhai soul-condensing liquid, but the pain was dozens or even hundreds of times more intense when the Thunder Arc or the primordial spirit was devoured. Finally, there were 2 drops of Dark Sea soul-condensing liquid left. Lin Yi did not take them away, but returned them to the jade trough. I'll leave these 2 drops for you. They can at least guarantee your survival for a long time. If you don't behave yourself, I won't be polite with you anymore. Lin Yi looked at Wang Ba coldly. The primordial spirit that had lost its physical body was different from when he went to the secular world. It was very difficult to form a primordial spirit body, and as time passed, it would become more and more difficult for it to survive. Wang Ba said dejectedly, I see. What else do you want to know? Ask away. I don't have anything good to give you anyway. Go and open the restriction of the cave first. Lin Yi pointed at the 3 caves on the rock wall. He could also open the restriction of the cave entrance, but with Wang Ba around, there was no need for him to waste his energy. Wang Ba did not dare to disobey, so he floated over obediently and removed the restriction that blocked his divine consciousness. Lin Yi's divine consciousness instantly swept into the cave. The one at the top was indeed arranged like a cultivation room. There was a brown jade cushion in the middle, and there was a damaged level 7 spirit gathering formation around the cushion. Perhaps it was caused by this guy's failure to break through back then, so he did not repair it after he became a primordial spirit. The other two caves were bigger. One of them had a casting pool, and the other looked like a nursery. Something must have been planted there in the past, but now it was barren. It was a miracle that the soil had not turned into stone. You know how to cast weapons and cultivate spiritual herbs? Do you also know how to study craftsmanship and alchemy? Lin Yi glanced at Wang Ba and could not help but feel curious. Plus the formations that he had set up earlier, this bastard was an all-rounder. I just know a little. I'm just kidding. Casting weapons is to make some formation flags. It's convenient to set up formations, but I can't cultivate spiritual herbs. Basically, spiritual herbs don't grow in this place. Wang Ba was quite humble. It seemed like he was scared of Lin Yi, so he did not dare to show any arrogance. Do you have any more formation flags? Take them out, and let me see. Lin Yi wanted to ask the Tattered King to refine some formation flags for him. It would be best if Wang Ba had more. Formation flags that could be used to set up level 7 formations were high level enough for him. At his current stage, it was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. However, with the ghost's guidance, Lin Yi felt that his progress in formations would be very fast. He estimated that he would be able to make the best use of the formation flags in no time. I'm sorry, I've used up all the formation flags that I've refined in the past. Wang Ba wanted to cry, but had no tears. Why did he have to meet this guy who wanted everything? Moreover, he could not defeat him. Back then, in order to successfully possess someone, he had purposely limited the creation battle tactics to the nascent soul stage. What happened in the end? Was he still in the nascent soul stage? Why do you always say that you don't have any when I ask you? Lin Yi frowned in dissatisfaction, but he was not too bothered. It did not matter if he did not have any formation flags. The most important thing was the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle tactics. The Will of Heaven had already jumped into the cave at the top and started looking for the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle tactics that Wang Ba had mentioned. However, Lin Yi did not find it after scanning the cave with his divine consciousness. The Will of Heaven would probably not find anything even if he searched the cave. Tortoise, where is the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle tactics? It's not in that cave. My patience is limited. You know what will happen to you if you play tricks. Lin Yi grabbed in the air and pulled Wang Ba's primordial spirit in front of him. The primordial spirit's devouring power was activated. No, I'm not playing any tricks. It's really in the cave above. If you don't believe me, let's go up together. I'll find it for you. I've set up a concealment formation under the spirit gathering formation, so your divine consciousness won't be able to find it, Wang Ba explained immediately in case Lin Yi devoured it. Your formation skills are really good. I can't even find the concealment formation that you set up. Lin Yi said this on behalf of the ghost because even with the ghost's formation skills, it could not find the concealment formation. Chapter 60-78. As he spoke, Lin Yi flew into the cave with Wang Ba. The Will of Heaven had already searched the cave and found nothing. This place was originally empty. There was only a brown jade praying mat that was slightly more eye-catching. There was nothing else. Tianxing flipped the jade praying mat in his hand and did not find anything unusual. Where is it? Lin Yi looked at Wang Ba and asked calmly. Loosen up a little. I'll remove the formation. Are you afraid that I can escape from you? Wang Ba was restrained by Lin Yi. He could not do anything other than speak, which was why he made such a request. Lin Yi did not suspect anything. The stone room was only so big, so there was no need to worry that Wang Ba would escape. Hence, he loosened up on Wang Ba. Thank you very much. Wang Ba laughed and floated to the futon. At the same time, he released his divine consciousness. The futon suddenly lit up and enveloped Wang Ba. It's a miniature teleportation formation, the ghost exclaimed. The miniature teleportation formation was hidden in the futon, and even it could not detect it. The formation did not seem to be of a high level. It was probably because the method of setting up the formation was completely different from what it knew. Lin Yi did not say a word and moved the soul hook. Unfortunately, Wang Ba had already entered the teleportation light. The light blocked the soul hook completely, so it could not affect Wang Ba at all. Hurry up and go in. Otherwise, we won't be able to activate the second teleportation in a short time. The ghost communicated with Lin Yi through divine consciousness at an extremely fast speed. In the outside world, it was almost like time had stopped. Because of that, before the miniature teleportation formation could send Wang Ba away, Lin Yi and the soul hook had already entered the teleportation light at almost the same time. The soul hook was blocked, but Lin Yi successfully rushed into the teleportation light. Wang Ba's pride had just risen, but it immediately turned into fear. Don't come in. This teleportation formation can only teleport one person. Wang Ba only managed to say half a sentence. After a flash of light, he and Lin Yi disappeared completely, leaving the futon to return to its original brown color as if nothing had happened.
Lin Yi.
The will of heaven was shocked. It happened so fast that he could not react in time. Although he knew he should stop Wang Ba, his body could not keep up. Before coming in, the will of heaven wanted to protect Lin Yi wholeheartedly, even if it meant sacrificing his life. Yet he had to watch Lin Yi disappear. The anger he felt almost made him lose his mind. If he had not heard half of what Wang Ba said and knew that this was a teleportation formation, Lin Yi might not have been in danger. The will of heaven would have wanted to kill him. On the other side, Lin Yi's vision darkened after entering the teleportation formation. He felt a great pain all over his body. The heaven-stealing battle art automatically activated, and when he finally suppressed it, he felt dizzy again. Even his primordial spirit was showing signs of instability. The 10,000-year-old tortoise did not lie. This miniature teleportation formation could not withstand the teleportation of two people, even if one of them was just a primordial spirit. After some time, maybe a few days, or maybe just a moment, when Lin Yi felt that his primordial spirit was about to collapse, a drop of light golden Xianhai soul-condensing liquid was sent into his consciousness ocean, instantly stabilizing his primordial spirit. The next moment, Lin Yi found himself in a stone room that was very similar to the one before. If there was not a small rock bookshelf, he would have thought that he had not been teleported away. Senior Ghost, where is that 10,000-year-old tortoise? Lin Yi shook his head. He knew that the ghost had saved him with the Xianhai soul-condensing liquid at the critical moment, but he did not know if Wang Ba, the bastard, was still alive.
Don't worry about him.
The miniature teleportation formation can indeed only withstand one person's teleportation. During the teleportation, that unlucky guy was torn into pieces. If you did not have the Xianhai soul-condensing liquid, your primordial spirit would have been severely damaged. The ghost was also a little scared. If Lin Yi died, the space in the jade pendant would probably collapse, and the ghost would not be able to escape. Although it had the soul wood and the Xianhai soul-condensing liquid, it was impossible for it to survive the collapse of the space in the jade pendant and the tearing force of the teleportation formation. He got lucky. Lin Yi sighed softly. He had underestimated this old monster who had lived for nearly 10,000 years. It found a chance to escape when he was slightly careless. Although this guy was dead in the end, he could not use the primordial spirit devouring skill or the soul-searching skill to find any information. Fortunately, this stone room should be another place where Wang Ba cultivated. The teleportation formation was set up to leave a way out. If he guessed correctly, the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle tactics should be here. Senior Ghost, how far is the distance of the miniature teleportation formation? Where are we now? Lin Yi had completely lost the concept of time during the teleportation. He did not even know how long had passed, so he could only ask the ghost. We're still on that island. The teleportation time was only 1 second, but this stone room was hidden by Wang Ba with a formation, so we didn't find this place before. Speaking of which, this guy's formation skills are really good. I've never seen this kind of formation technique before. If I have time, I'd like to study it here. It was rare for the ghost to be so serious, so Lin Yi immediately paid attention to it. Even an Earth-level formation master, like the ghost, was full of praise. If he could find Wang Ba's formation book, it would not be inferior to the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle tactics. The most eye-catching thing in this stone room was naturally the rock bookshelf. There were 4 rectangular jade boxes on it. There was a restriction on the jade boxes to prevent the things inside from being damaged. Lin Yi kept his divine consciousness on high alert. He slowly walked to the rock bookshelf and casually broke the restriction on one of the jade boxes. The restriction was only used to protect the jade box and was not very complicated, so it was easy to break it. Before opening it, Lin Yi first used his divine consciousness to check carefully. Wang Ba, that be *starred, was very cunning. Who knew if there were other traps in these jade boxes? The ghost did not dare to be negligent. It checked with Lin Yi together. After confirming that there were no problems, it let Lin Yi open the jade box in his hand. There was a thin book in the jade box. It seemed to be made of some kind of silk. Without the protection of the restriction, it would have been rotten after 10,000 years. Lin Yi was very careful now, afraid that he would cause irreparable damage to the book. Chapter 60-79. It was a worthwhile trip to obtain the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art. The other 3 jade boxes on the bookshelf were definitely a pleasant surprise. He could only hope that Wang Ba's formation Dao ancient book was among them. Lin Yi did not have the time to look at it carefully. He first put the creation battle art into his storage bag, broke a restriction, and carefully opened the lid. There was another book made of the same material inside. There was no indication on the cover. After opening it, he realized that it was Wang Ba's cultivation experience of the creation battle art. The 10,000-year tortoise can indeed be considered an amazing genius. He can definitely be called a master in the study of creation battle arts. Unfortunately, he was trapped in the Earth expansion stage. If he had the mental cultivation method after the sea splitting stage, his achievements would be limitless. Lin Yi flipped through it and could not help but exclaim. Lin Yi was hesitant to give this cultivation experience to the will of heaven because everyone would have their own understanding of the creation battle art. It could not be said that it was completely different, but it was definitely not the same. It was just like how Lin Yi used the art of dragon mastery to fuse with the creation battle art. It was only suitable for him to cultivate, but the will of heaven was almost useless. Wang Ba's cultivation experience was exquisite, but it was also because of this that it was likely to affect the will of heaven's own understanding of the creation battle art. It might be fast in the beginning, but it was hard to say in the later stages. Senior Ghost, do you think this cultivation experience is useful to the will of heaven? Lin Yi was not sure, so he could only ask for the ghost's opinion. You can give it to him as a reference. He'll know what's useful and what's useless anyway. Actually, it doesn't matter if you don't give it to him. It's just a failure's experience anyway. No matter what, he won't be able to break through to the sea-splitting stage. The ghost looked indifferent and even a little disdainful. Lin Yi didn't know what to say in response. The ghost was basically talking nonsense, but it did make sense. In the end, Lin Yi decided to put it away first and give it to the will of heaven to decide whether he wanted to use it or not. The other 2 jade boxes were still waiting for him to open. The 3rd jade box's restriction was broken. Lin Yi began to hope that it was an ancient book of formation Dao. It did not matter even if it was not, as long as it was not the 2nd volume of Wang Ba's cultivation experience. Casting Foundation? Lin Yi was speechless. It was just a book on the basics of weaponsmithing. Was there a need to keep it this precious for 10,000 years? If he gave it to the King of Rags, this book would definitely be useful to him. Kid, don't underestimate the foundation of casting 10,000 years ago. The current casting techniques are only as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. If this book is auctioned, It will definitely fetch a sky-high price. Although your friend, the King of Junk, has another inheritance, this book will definitely be helpful to him. The ghostly thing kindly reminded him, then urged, "All right, hurry up and put them away. Open the last jade box as well." Linny thought about it and realized that it made sense. He'd give it to the garbage king later. It'd be worth it even if it helped a little. Before opening the last jade box, Lin-Yi suddenly thought of the nursery in the stone cave. Could it be a book about growing spiritual herbs? The stone cave was the casting pool, and the third jade box was the casting foundation. Therefore, it was possible a guide to growing spiritual herbs. It really was used to grow grass. Lin-Yi almost threw the book away along with the jade box. Wang Ba, you bastard. What the hell was this? It had been preserved for 10,000 years. Wait, what's that under the book? Take it out. The ghost was a little disappointed, but it was more attentive. It used its divine sense to find a folded piece of paper under the book. Lin-Yi was slightly stunned. He quickly took the book out of the jade box and saw the paper at the bottom. If the ghost was in seclusion, he would have used his divine sense to check it out. However, he almost missed it because of his laziness. It seemed like he should not rely on the ghost too much in the future. He had to do everything by himself. 10,000 amplification formation. Lin-Yi read the 4 small words on the paper and unfolded the paper. Although it was a little small, at least it seemed to be related to formations. Lin-Yi was looking forward to it. However, the 10,000 amplification formation that was the size of an A4 piece of paper was blank. There was nothing on it. What's going on? Could it be that it's been too long and the content has disappeared? Lin-Yi was stunned. He flipped it over and looked at the back. Apart from the 4 small words, there was nothing on it. If the content had disappeared because it had been too long, the 4 words should not have been left behind. Lin-Yi flipped the paper again and studied the blank. Perhaps he needed to pour some water on it? Or roast it with fire? Or use water first and then fire? Lin-Yi kept thinking about all the clichés he had seen in the past. If it did not work, he would have to try them out one by one. Just as he was thinking about it, a small black appeared in the center of the 10,000 amplification formation. Lin-Yi was immediately excited. This was a rare discovery. It seemed like he did not need water or fire to display the content. After the small black dot appeared, another small black dot appeared not far away from it. Then, in the span of a breath, more than a dozen black dots appeared in succession. These black dots circled around the small black in the center in an orderly manner. Soon, they formed a simple diagram. This is a grade 1 formation? Lin-Yi blinked and looked at the 10,000 amplification formation in surprise. Not waiting for him to finish speaking, these little black dots slightly changed their positions, forming another level 1 array diagram. After a few breaths, a third array diagram appeared. At this point, if Lin-Yi still did not know what kind of treasure this 10,000 amplification formation was, he would be too stupid. So, Wang Ba learned his formation skills from this. With this kind of treasure, it's not difficult to become a formation master. Lin-Yi exclaimed. He then put the 10,000 amplification formation into the space of the jade pendant and handed it to Gui Dongxi to study. He needed to meet up with the Will of Heaven as soon as possible so that the Will of Heaven would not worry about him. Chapter 6080. I see. That means the Eternal Tortoise is very talented in formations. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to set up a formation that even you can't see through. Oh right, Senior Ghost, how do we leave this place? Can the miniature teleportation formation still be used? Lin-Yi had already searched the stone room as he spoke, but he did not find any exit. It seemed like Wang Ba relied on teleportation to get in and out of this place. The teleportation formation is broken. It won't be fixed in a short time. Stay here quietly for now. The ghost was focused on studying the myriad amplification formation diagram. It did not have the time to fix the teleportation formation. Moreover, it could not fix it, at least not before it finished studying the myriad amplification formation diagram. Lin-Yi was speechless. What did it mean by stay here quietly for now? Didn't it know that the will of heaven was anxiously waiting outside? Don't even think about destroying this stone room by force. Wangba has set up a formation outside. If you move here, the entire island might collapse. Don't blame me for not warning you when you can't get out. Just give me a day or two. I'll think of a way then. The ghost continued studying the myriad amplification formation diagram after saying that, not caring about what Lin Yi was thinking. Originally, Lin Yi wanted to force a way out, but he did not dare to do so after hearing the ghost's warning. It did not matter to him, but it would be troublesome if he buried the will of heaven here. Lin Yi had no choice but to take out the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art and study it by himself. There were no follow-up problems with the stolen fortune battle art after it was combined with the art of dragon mastery. As long as Lin Yi continued to deduce it, he could continue to cultivate. However, with the original creation battle art as a reference, the deduction would be even more perfect. At first, Lin Yi only wanted to kill time and wait for the ghost, but after studying the creation battle art, he was completely immersed in it. The stolen fortune battle art was a mental cultivation method that Lin Yi had derived when he was in the foundation establishment stage. He had not modified it since. In fact, he should have derived it again when he reached the nascent soul stage. After all, the understanding of mental cultivation and cultivation between the two stages were completely different. This time, with the original creation battle art as a reference, Lin Yi immediately discovered some shortcomings of the stolen fortune battle art. Actually, it was not that it was lacking. It was just that he could find a more perfect solution at a different level. Before he knew it, Lin Yi's Heaven's stolen fortune battle art had started to circulate on its own, and it was being perfected in the process. The spiritual energy around him was being guided, slowly gathering around Lin Yi. Lin Yi, who had inadvertently entered the state of cultivation, instinctively felt that the spiritual energy around him was insufficient. With a wave of his hand, he took out a large pile of spiritual jades from the space of the jade pendant and piled them up in the stone room. At the same time, the spiritual energy in the space of the jade pendant was also transmitted into Lin Yi's body. The place where Lin Yi was now was the second place that Wang Ba used to practice in seclusion. With the appearance of a large pile of spiritual jades, a hidden spirit gathering formation was also activated. All the spiritual energy was gathered in the stone room and even formed a spiritual vortex, which was crazily absorbed by Lin Yi's body. Everything seemed to be natural. Lin Yi broke through the barrier of the peak of the late stage of Mysterious Ascension and officially stepped into the Mysterious Ascension Great Perfection with almost no effort. At the same time, the strength of his divine sense also rose. The two breakthroughs were at the same time, or it could be said that the two complemented each other. In the future, Lin Yi's advancement would probably be like this. It was completely different from the cultivators on the Heaven Stage Island. It was somewhat similar to the way the ancient underworld used divine sense to drive strength, but it was also not exactly the same. After entering the Mysterious Ascension Great Perfection, Lin Yi did not stop cultivating. Taking advantage of the opportunity of perfecting the stolen fortune battle art, his strength rose rapidly. In a short period of time, he had completely stabilized his strength and was constantly accumulating strength. As time passed, Lin Yi could feel that he was almost twice as strong as before he broke through, but he still did not touch the barrier of the mountain opening stage. It seemed that if he wanted to advance to the mountain opening stage in one go, he would need more accumulation. The spiritual jades in the stone room had completely turned into ashes, and the spiritual vortex had completely subsided. Lin Yi spat out a mouthful of turbid air and slowly opened his eyes. Why don't you use the mountain-gazing pill to break through in one go? The ghost thing had already stopped studying the myriad amplification formation diagram and asked curiously. Lin Yi had the top-grade mountain-gazing pill in his hands. If he had taken it just now, there was actually a high chance that he could break through. I feel that my accumulation is not enough. The time to advance to the mountain opening stage has not arrived yet. Let's talk about it after I cultivate for a while more. Lin Yi smiled slightly, stood up, and moved his body slightly. The feeling of strength made him very happy. The ghost thing did not say much. It was very good that Lin Yi could clearly understand himself. When he felt that the time was right, he would break through, and it would definitely be much stronger than breaking through now. Senior Ghost, how long did I take to break through? Can I go out now? Lin Yi did not continue to cultivate. He also had the intention of leaving this place as soon as possible to meet with the will of heaven, so he immediately asked the ghost thing. It has only been a day. I have already studied this teleportation formation. It seems that there is no way to repair it. We can only start with the formation here. I will tell you how to break it. The ghost thing was itself a formation master, so it was extremely fast in studying the myriad amplification formation diagram. Moreover, it had a clear direction, so it found a way to break the formation within a day. Lin Yi agreed and was ready to cooperate with the ghost thing to break the formation. Suddenly, the ghost thing changed its mind. Lin Yi, I think we should not go out for the time being.
Why?
Lin Yi asked with some doubts. Then, the ghost thing shared its divine sense with Lin Yi, which made him instantly speechless. The location of this stone room was actually very close to the top of the island. It should have been specially built by Wang Ba to feel the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and to cultivate the creation battle art. The problem was that it was now high tide, and the entire island had sunk into the sea. Through the divine sense of the ghost, Lin Yi could clearly see that there were dozens of sea beasts surrounding the island. Among them, there was an earth opening stage sea beast and 2 mountain opening stage sea beasts. Although this sea area was still within the range of the middle island, it was definitely not the safe sea area of the middle island. It was not strange at all for these sea beasts to appear, but the strange thing was, why did they gather here? Could it be that they were attracted by the movement when Lin Yi broke through? In fact, it did not matter if Lin Yi was cultivating, but the previous breakthrough was a little shocking. The fluctuation of the spiritual qi was so intense that it attracted the nearby sea beasts. Chapter 60-81. If there were only these sea beasts in front of him, Lin Yi was confident that he could escape. Unfortunately, there seemed to be more sea beasts gathering in the distance. If he broke out of the formation now, and was delayed for a few breaths, he would be in a very bad situation. Unfortunately, it was not a matter of whether Lin Yi wanted to go out or not. After the sea beasts swam around the island for a few rounds, they directly attacked the island. This kind of island could be easily destroyed by a few sea beasts of the profound ascension stage. However, with so many sea beasts, including the sea beasts of the mountain opening stage and the earth opening stage attacking at the same time, they could not damage the island immediately. This was because when they attacked, the entire island was covered with a light film of a defensive formation, which temporarily blocked all the attacks. This is the defensive formation that Wang Ba set up in the past. Lin Yi was surprised and happy. He did not expect that after 10,000 years, that bastard Wang Ba's defensive formation would still work. Moreover, he and the ghost did not notice the existence of this defensive formation before. The concealment formation on the island was indeed deliberately made by Wang Ba to look like it was damaged naturally. Otherwise, no one would be able to find this place at all. This formation can't hold for long. Let's go. The ghost had studied the myriad amplification formation chart, so it naturally knew the weakness of this defensive formation. It might take a lot of time for an earth opening stage sea beast to break this defensive formation. However, with 2 mountain opening stage sea beasts and so many profound ascension stage and nascent soul stage sea beasts, it would only last for about 15 minutes at most. While the defensive formation could still hold, they should immediately leave this place and fly out of the sea with the flying saucer. That would basically guarantee their safety. Senior Ghost, is the will of heaven still here? Lin Yi also wanted to take this opportunity to leave this place, but before he left, he had to confirm the location of the will of heaven. His divine sense did not have the ghost's help, so there was no way for him to leave this stone room. Naturally, he could not smoothly search for the will of heaven. He's still in the stone room that you teleported out from. He probably thinks that you will return there, the ghost said helplessly. It was not a short distance from here to there, but Lin Yi had the lightning escape skill. As long as he could leave this formation, it would be very fast. The only problem was that it didn't seem easy to get out of this array formation. Let's find the will of heaven first. We can't leave him here. Once the island's defense formation collapses, he will definitely be buried alive at the bottom of the sea. Lin Yi made a prompt decision and immediately made the decision to meet up with the will of heaven. The ghost knew that there was no point in objecting, so it stopped talking nonsense and directly taught Lin Yi how to break out of the formation. At this time, Lin Yi especially wanted a batch of good array flags, which would be much more convenient to use to break the array. Without suitable array flags, he could only use stupid methods to break the array with the ghost's explanation, which was relatively inefficient. The entire island trembled slightly. It seemed that the defensive formation that Wang Ba had set up could not completely block the attacks of the sea beasts. No one knew who would break the formation faster. The will of heaven also felt that something was wrong. He had already left the stone room and quickly retreated to the way he came. In this way, the time for Lin Yi to meet up with him would be shorter. After a dozen breaths, the will of heaven returned to the entrance of the island. Because of the restriction, the seawater did not flood in, but he could see the situation outside. There were so many sea beasts, and almost 70% of them were stronger than him. Not to mention that he was under the sea. Even if he was on land, he would not be able to escape from the siege of these sea beasts. Lin Yi, it seems that I can't wait for you to come back. I hope I don't meet you on the way to reincarnation. The will of heaven smiled. He did not care too much about the crisis in front of him. Since ancient times, everyone would die. He just had to kill a few more sea beasts to be his scapegoats. The only thing that the will of heaven regretted was that he could not confirm Lin Yi's safety. If he had not asked for help from Lin Yi would not be in such a situation. Now, the will of heaven only needed to wait for the defensive formation to be broken. He would use all his strength to kill as many sea beasts as he could. As for running away, he did not even think about it. With the strength of the will of heaven, facing sea beasts in the mountain opening stage and the earth opening stage, he would only die faster if he tried to run away. Time passed slowly under the gaze of the will of heaven. Seeing that the defensive formation was on the verge of breaking, he became more focused. He did not notice that a figure had silently appeared behind him. Brother Heaven. Lin Yi reached out and patted the will of heaven's shoulder. However, the latter was so scared that he almost jumped.
Lin Yi.
You're fine. That's great. The will of heaven almost threw the long-prepared attack behind him. Fortunately, Lin Yi's voice sounded in time. This time, he stopped in time. Lin Yi did not think too much about it. Seeing the will of heaven's surprised expression, he was quite touched. If the will of heaven did not wait for him, he would not be trapped here. Brother Heaven, I have made you worry. Let's get ready to leave. Lin Yi smiled and looked up at the sea beasts outside the defensive formation. After a period of time, many sea beasts had joined in. Fortunately, there were no new sea beasts in the earth opening stage. This was good news for Lin Yi. Lin Yi, there are too many sea beasts outside.
Don't worry about me.
Leave if you can. Don't hesitate. Otherwise, none of us will be able to leave. The smile on the will of heaven's face disappeared. He looked at Lin Yi and said solemnly. Lin Yi was slightly startled. Then he understood that the will of heaven was worried about dragging him down. However, if it was only an earth-opening stage sea beast, there was still a chance to get rid of it. Brother Heaven, don't worry. I am sure that I can leave with you. Lin Yi waved his hand and did not explain. However, his strong self-confidence had infected the will of heaven. In that case, we brothers will fight together. The will of heaven smiled again. He reached out and bumped fists with Lin Yi. However, he had already made up his mind. If the situation was not good, he would stay and buy time for Lin Yi to escape from this island. Speaking of which, the will of heaven did not know that Lin Yi had a flying saucer. He had always thought that after Lin Yi rushed out of the sea with him, they would find a nearby island to stay temporarily. As long as they were not under the sea beasts would not bother them. If it were not for the fact that the defensive formation could not hold up, and the tide would need at least an hour, the will of heaven would never let Linny go out and take risks. Chapter 6082. At the same time, the most powerful Earth-opening stage sea beast happened to swim in another direction, which was relatively far away. In Linny's view, this was the best opportunity. The defensive array formation was not facing the inside, so Lin Yi and the will of heaven rushed out of the defensive array formation without any hindrance. They were about to face another wave of sea beasts that were about to descend. Lin Yi circulated his innate qi and released the lightning arcs that he had already prepared. More than 10 lightning arcs instantly spread out in the water, and the originally dim water surface suddenly became as bright as day. Some of the surrounding sea beasts were affected by the lightning arcs, and their bodies fell into a temporary state of paralysis. Lin Yi activated the lightning evasion technique, and along with the will of heaven, he followed an upward lightning arc and escaped the attack range of the sea beasts at the critical moment. Until now, Lin Yi had only used the lightning evasion technique by himself, and he was not sure if he could bring others with him. Fortunately, he did not gamble wrong this time. Although with the will of heaven, the distance of the lightning evasion technique was shortened a lot, but at least he did not fail. The wave of attacks that Lin Yi had dodged landed on the defensive array formation, and finally, the layer of light film was completely torn apart. If the two of them had hesitated for even a moment, they would have faced the siege of all the sea beasts. When the sea beasts that were not affected by the lightning arcs discovered that Lin Yi had escaped, they began to madly chase after them, and all kinds of attack waves were constantly exploding in the water, causing many irregular giant waves to rise on the sea surface. Lin Yi and the will of heaven should be able to escape from the sea after using the lightning evasion technique. After all, the high tide would not really rise too much, and the highest point of the island that was submerged in the sea was only about a meter above the sea surface. But because of the violent attack of the sea beasts, the momentum that Lin Yi estimated did not appear. He rose dozens of meters, but was still in the middle of a giant wave, and along with this giant wave, he slid down again. Lin Yi spread out his divine sense, and after finding the direction, he once again shot out a lightning arc and brought the will of heaven dozens of meters horizontally, wanting to take out the UFO, but there was still no chance, because there were too many sea beasts gathered in the sea, and these sea beasts were very smart. After realizing that Lin Yi was using the lightning evasion technique, they began to attack the entire area. No matter how fast the lightning evasion technique was, as long as they did not leave the area, it would not be able to avoid such dense attacks. If Lin Yi took out the UFO now, he would only become the target of the sea beasts. Although the defense of the UFO had greatly increased after fusing with the starry sky flowing flame gold, Lin Yi did not dare to use it to resist the attacks of the sea beasts. 1 or 2 would be fine, but hundreds of sea beasts, no matter how much starry sky flowing flame gold he had, it would be useless. Lin Yi's eyes turned slightly cold. If he was alone, he could use the lightning evasion technique to move continuously, and he might be able to quickly escape the attack of the sea beasts, but if he brought the will of heaven along, it would be a great hindrance to the lightning evasion technique, because he also had to protect the will of heaven from being injured by the lightning. Lin Yi's true qi and mental strength were both greatly consumed. Since he could not leave, then he would not leave. 1,000 thunderbolt explosions. This was one of Lin Yi's most powerful trump cards, and in dealing with the group attack situation, it was absolutely worthy of being the number one. Countless dark blue lightning arcs poured down on the surface of the sea, and after the small lightning arcs exploded, they continuously jumped on the surface of the water, and the sea beasts in the area immediately issued mournful cries. A large number of sea beasts under Lin Yi's attack were torn open, and finally fell, without any suspense. The will of heaven was under Lin Yi's protection, so he was not affected by the 1,000 thunderbolt explosions, but he was still shocked by the destructive power of this move. He had always known that Lin Yi was very strong, but now he had the most direct experience. Lin Yi did not continue to be entangled, and took advantage of the 1,000 thunderbolt explosions clearing the sea beasts in the area and temporarily intimidating the sea beasts outside the range. He immediately took out the UFO, activated it, and entered it with the will of heaven. If he was alone, he might have killed all the sea beasts here and then collected the sea beasts' beast cores, but now, Lin Yi did not even touch the dead sea beasts. After entering the UFO, he immediately controlled the UFO to fly thousands of miles away. Compared to the harvest this time, a few sea beasts' beast cores were not worth mentioning. The most important thing now was to ensure the safety of the will of heaven and let him continue to cultivate the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art. Lin Yi, it's all thanks to you that we can escape unscathed this time. The will of heaven came to Lin Yi's side and expressed his sincere gratitude. Although he could not find the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art in the end, being able to escape unscathed with Lin Yi was enough for him to be satisfied. Brother Heaven, don't be so polite. If you weren't waiting for me, you could have left that island unscathed. Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand at the will of heaven. From the UFO's monitor screen, many sea beasts could be seen gathering in the same direction. If Lin Yi and the others did not leave in time, they would have to face a new wave of sea beasts. Thinking of what he got from Wang Ba, Lin Yi took out 2 jade boxes and handed them to the will of heaven. Brother Heaven, this is the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art. I've read it, and there's no problem with it. It's a pity that I can only cultivate it to the earth opening stage. If I want to break through to the sea splitting stage, I'll have to continue looking for the follow-up mental cultivation method. The other jade box contains Wang Ba's cultivation experience. Take a look and see if there's any value in it. You found the follow-up mental cultivation method of the creation battle art. Tianqing was pleasantly surprised, quickly taking the 2 jade boxes with both hands. He thought that he wouldn't be able to find the art this time and could only come back next time when he had the chance. He didn't think that Lin Yi would take it out right away. Yes, that bastard Wang Ba hid it in another cultivation room. If he didn't want to escape, it wouldn't have been easy to find it. You can take a look at the cultivation experience, but don't take it too seriously. Wang Ba doesn't walk the same path as we do. Lin Yi smiled faintly and briefly mentioned his thoughts. He believed that the will of heaven could understand what he meant. That's right. We cultivate the creation battle art in an upright way, but Wang Ba is more shady. His cultivation experience has no value. The will of heaven confirmed which book was Wang Ba's cultivation experience. He put his palms together and turned the book into powder with a surge of vital qi. To the will of heaven, he had to walk his own path. Wang Ba was not qualified to guide him. Lin Yi was deeply moved by the pride that emanated from the depths of his heart. He believed that with the follow-up mental cultivation method, the will of heaven would be able to improve his strength quickly. Chapter 60-83. No, the teleportation circle he set up could only transport one person, so his spirit was torn apart during the teleportation. Lin Yi replied calmly, but he was still a little scared. If it wasn't for the ghost that helped him with the Xianhai soul condensing liquid in time, he and Wang Ba might have died together. Lin Yi looked at Wang Ba calmly. That's good. If he escapes, he'll be a problem in the future. The will of heaven nodded. He was relieved to know that Wang Ba was dead. Wang Ba was a scheming person. Once he escaped, he would definitely seek revenge on Lin Yi in the future, and it was highly likely that Tianchan and the others would be involved. As they were talking, they were approaching Middle Island. Lin Yi didn't fly into the central area, but put away the flying saucer at the edge of Middle Island. The will of heaven already knew that it was a flying device Han Jingjing made for Lin Yi. He was amazed at Jingjing's talent and wondered if he should ask her for a flying device when she woke up. It would be more convenient for her to go out in the future. The two of them returned to the Heavenly Dan Pavilion together. In the time that they had left, nothing major had happened on the Middle Island. Everything was calm and peaceful, and Han Jingjing's condition did not show any signs of improving. Tianqing was anxious to cultivate the creation battle art, so after visiting Han Jingjing, he quickly bid farewell and left. Lin Yi stayed in Han Jingjing's room and frowned. He turned to Tian Chan and asked, "Any reply from the secular world?" "No, and the executives of the Central Chamber of Commerce in Middle Island aren't around these 2 days. I can't even ask them." Tian Chan shook her head helplessly. She didn't know if it was because Min Huichen kept asking about the reply, but Kong Ming and the others disappeared. Lin Yi paused. He didn't suspect that the people from the Chamber of Commerce were purposely avoiding him. If Kong Xiaoming could do something like this, then Zhong Pingliang definitely wouldn't. The Chamber of Commerce probably had some new plans, and they were all gathered here. Unfortunately, there was no news from Pinliang, and Lin Yi couldn't make any conclusions. He could only hope that it wasn't related to Nanzhou's plan. Did the people from the Central Chamber of Commerce say when they will come back? Lin Yi asked casually, but he was thinking whether he should leave for the South Continent immediately. Although Shanghai Tianhua didn't set a time limit for Lin Yi to explore the South Continent, it was better to finish this kind of thing as soon as possible. Besides, Lin Yi still had to go to the East Continent with Shanghai later, so there was a time limit. Min Huichen said they'll be back in 2 days. They shouldn't be going somewhere too far. They're just leaving for a while. Tian Chan didn't think that the return of the Central Chamber of Commerce's higher-ups would be any different. The key to this matter was whether there was any news from the common world about Han Jingjing. Lin Yi, maybe we should ask Okuda Island Master for a solution. Going back to the common world is better than waiting here, right? Tian Chan hesitated for a while, but she still brought up this idea. She didn't want Lin Yi to go back to the common world again. Last time, he left for 2 to 3 years. Who knew how long it would take this time? But if Han Jingjing couldn't come back, it was necessary for Lin Yi to go back to the common world. You're right. I'll ask Okuda Island Master later. Lin Yi nodded, but he didn't have much hope. Primordial spirit projection couldn't be used anytime and anywhere. He just came back not long ago. Even if Okuda Island Master wanted to help, it was hard to say if he could use primordial spirit projection. As the two of them were talking, Lan Guja ran over and stuck his head out of the door to take a look. Then he whispered, "Boss, can I tell you something?" Lin Yi was slightly stunned. What was this guy trying to do? He had always been a straightforward person. Why did he change his style today? Say it. Lin Yi waved his hand and gestured for him to come in. Tian Chan wasn't an outsider, so there was no need to hide anything. Boss, it's like this. Sister-in-law Jingjing still needs you to accompany her for the time being, so I'm thinking if we should bring Fei Yi and the others to the South Continent to take a look and gather information from all aspects for Boss. When the time comes, when Boss gets there, you'll be able to do things very easily. Languza ran in happily and said with a face full of smiles, "You want to go to the Southern Continent?" Lin Yi looked at Languza with some surprise. When did this guy start to be interested in things other than eating, fighting, and so on? Hee, I just want to share the burden for you, boss. Moreover, those guys have nothing to do in Middle Island. They might cause trouble. Let me bring them to the Southern Continent. Maybe they can be of some use. Languza said with a smile. However, Lin Yi felt that this proposal was indeed feasible. Tian Chan couldn't help but want to laugh. Languza was the one who had nothing to do all day and might cause trouble himself. But this guy could still put the blame on others with a straight face. How Zili and the others were controlled by Lin Yi. They were cautious in everything they did. They were afraid of making Lin Yi unhappy. They were definitely the opposite of Languza. What you said makes sense. In that case, you take the 3 of them to the Southern Continent. First, collect all kinds of intelligence information for me. Lin Yi smiled slightly. He guessed that Languza was bored in Middle Island, so he wanted to go to the Southern Continent to find something to do. If this guy went alone, Lin Yi really didn't dare to expect him to be of any help. However, with how Zili Min Huichen and the others going together, it should be a lot of help. They were all unfamiliar faces in the Southern Continent. Fei Yi was a flying spiritual beast that could transform. It was very convenient for them to move. Maybe when Lin Yi went there, they had already collected enough intelligence. Haha, rest assured, boss. With me, Languza, it will definitely be done properly. When Languza heard Lin Yi's promise, he suddenly beamed with joy. He patted his chest hard and promised loudly. In fact, this time, Languza really wanted to do something for Lin Yi. Of course, going to the southern continent to fool around was also one of the purposes. More importantly, Languza could bring 3 followers with him. When the boss was not around, he would be the leader. It would be interesting to go out and show off. Remember, when you go to the southern continent, you must not expose your purpose. Don't act rashly. Don't alert the enemy. Just inquire and collect information secretly, understand? Lin Yi warned solemnly. These things were not difficult, so he could rest assured if Languza and the others went there. Chapter 60-84. Let's go. I'll tell how Zili and the others. Lin Yi waved his hand and went downstairs with Languza. He summoned Hao Zili and the other 2 and repeated what he had just said. Hao Zili and the others were secretly happy. This kind of opportunity to work for Lin Yi was quite rare. If they did it well, they might get the antidote directly and get out of the abyss of suffering. Therefore, they were all ready to go through water and tread on fire. Lin Yi laughed in his heart. Languza suddenly proposed to go to the South Island, and these guys were probably one of the people behind it. They should have accidentally heard from Languza that Lin Yi would go to the South Continent to do something, and then instigated Languza to ask for the task. He knew that they wanted to do a few beautiful things and then ask Lin Yi to detoxify, so it was just right for them to solve Lin Yi's dilemma. It was convenient to have powerful subordinates, and he didn't need to do everything by himself. At this moment, Lin Yi was even more determined to train more younger brothers to grow up quickly. After saying goodbye to Lin Yi, Languza, and the other 3 left the middle island directly. Before coming to ask Lin Yi, he had already purchased enough food, so he left very quickly. For a moment, the Tiandan Pavilion became deserted again. With Languza and the others going to the South Continent to collect information first, Lin Yi could also stay in the Middle Island with more peace of mind to look after Han Jingjing and study the formation diagram of thousand amplification. With the guidance of the ghost beside him, his understanding of formation also improved by leaps and bounds. A few days later, the Central Chamber of Commerce finally sent a reply from the secular world. Lin Yi quickly opened it and read it, but he learned that there was no trace of Han Jingjing in the secular world for the time being. Not in the secular world? Where on earth did Jingjing go? Lin Yi frowned and was extremely upset. Tian Chan and Sydney looked at each other. For a moment, they didn't know how to comfort Lin Yi, so they could only remain silent for the time being. Lin Yi let out a long sigh. 2 days ago, he went to Okuda Prefecture and asked if he could project his primordial spirit in the near future. Unfortunately, Okuda Prefecture told Lin Yi very clearly that it would be impossible for at least half a year. This also made Lin Yi give up the idea of returning to the secular world to find Han Jingjing. Where did Han Jingjing go? Other than herself, no one would be able to guess this question. When she returned to Heaven Island, Han Jingjing's mind was filled with information about the wormhole, so her mind was completely attracted by the wormhole. Unknowingly, she actually arrived in a wonderful space. In this space, everything was full of illusory colors. Han Jingjing herself was a primordial spirit, but in this space, she was further turned into countless tiny particles. There were countless other particles constantly shuttling back and forth around her. Fortunately, there was no intersection or conflict with Han Jingjing. Under Han Jingjing's conscious control, every particle that her primordial spirit turned into seemed to have a trace of its own will. Unlike other particles that were straightforward, Han Jingjing's particles began to wander around as if exploring a new world. In the beginning, Han Jingjing was still worried that other particle clusters would have some unnecessary collision with her primordial spirit particles, leading to some uncontrollable changes, so she was very careful when moving. But slowly, she discovered that there seemed to be some special connection between all the particle clusters, just like her primordial spirit particles. Although they were scattered, no matter how they moved, they would not leave a certain range. Even if Han Jingjing's primordial spirit particles deliberately passed through other particle clusters, nothing bad happened. Wandering in this wonderful illusory space, Han Jingjing did not know how much time had passed. Gradually, she became a little tired of the state of particles. When she had this thought, those scattered particles began to quickly gather together, and soon, Han Jingjing's primordial spirit body was restored. What a wonderful place! This should be the wormhole, right? Han Jingjing raised her palm and said to herself with a smile. She never thought that she would appear in a wormhole. After wandering before, Han Jingjing's research on wormholes had a qualitative leap. If her physical body entered a wormhole, she was afraid that it would disintegrate in an instant. Even if it could be reassembled, it would at most be a broken corpse. But in the primordial spirit state, there was no danger. Well, at least for now, there was no danger. It seemed that using the wormhole to travel between Heaven Island and the secular world seemed to be safer than using the primordial spirit projection. However, whether there was a requirement for the strength of the primordial spirit required further research. It's so strange. Why did I suddenly come to a wormhole? Han Jingjing, who had woken up from her research, thought about how she appeared here. After floating around casually, Han Jingjing nodded and said to herself, "It should be like this. When returning to Heaven Island, if I only thought about my main body, I could go back smoothly. But at that time, I was thinking about the wormhole, so I entered the wormhole. Could it be that the way to enter the wormhole with the primordial spirit is to think about the wormhole? That's not right. It should be that only when returning to the state of my main body on Heaven Island can I think about the wormhole.
Aya.
I can't go back. Big brother Lin, he must be very worried, right? I have to go back as soon as possible." Han Jingjing suddenly stopped in the endless void and slapped her forehead. The problem was, how could she get out of this wormhole? Han Jingjing tried to return to Heaven Island, but unfortunately, no matter how much she thought about her main body, there was no effect. It seems that this method won't work in the wormhole. I can only do this. Han Jingjing snapped her fingers, and the primordial spirit instantly dissipated, turning back into countless particles, forming an almost invisible particle cluster. Time couldn't be felt in the illusory space, and there was no direction at all. But based on the flow of particles around, Han Jingjing judged that the exit of the wormhole must be on the route of the movement of many particles. The only question now was, which direction should she choose? After a moment, Han Jingjing put aside this question and randomly chose a direction to move in. Since this wormhole connected Heaven Island and the secular world, it didn't matter. It was the same no matter which way she went out. Even if she returned to the secular world, it would be very easy to return to Heaven Island. It was just that she didn't know how long it would take to get out this time. Big brother Lin Yi, don't worry. Jingjing will be back to find you soon. Chapter 60-85. The Middle Island Pier became lively instantly. Countless goods were unloaded from the treasure ship and then sent to their respective owners' homes. For a time, the central area became crowded and noisy. Lin Yi sensed the changes outside and released his divine senses. He found that Wei Xinjin, Hou Guanqi, Kai Zhongyang, and others had already gotten off the ship and were saying goodbye to Okuda Dam. So, he didn't go over to join in the fun. It was not too late to say hello to them when it was quieter. In addition to these people, Lin Yi also saw Hong Zhong. This time, he didn't stay in the North Island. Instead, he went directly to the Middle Island. Maybe he was going to the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce to do something. After they got out of the pier, they separated. Kai Zhongyang and others had a lot of goods to deal with. Only Wei Xinjin was not in a hurry to return to the Snow Sword School, so he went directly to the Tiandan Pavilion. He probably wanted to visit Lin Yi first before going back. Shang Yuhua was originally with him, but there were a lot of things in the Universal Chamber of Commerce. In order to help her father, she had to temporarily separate from Wei Xinjin. Fortunately, they had returned to the Middle Island. If they wanted to see each other in the future, there would be many opportunities, so they were not in a hurry. After a short while, Wei Xinjin arrived at the Tiandan Pavilion. Tian Chan directly asked him to go upstairs to see Lin Yi. They were all on the same side, so there was no need to worry. Seeing Lin Yi, Wei Xinjin immediately smiled and hurriedly walked forward with his hands folded, bowed, and said, "Boss, I'm back." "Well, don't be so polite to me. Look at your happy face. You must have a good relationship with Zhang Yuhua, right?" Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand to signal Wei Xinjin to sit down and talk. "Thank you, boss." Wei Xinjin blushed and thanked him sincerely. Then he turned around and sat down. After experiencing the failure of previous relationships, Wei Xinjin cherished Zhang Yuhua from the bottom of his heart, so he was even more grateful for Lin Yi's help. "It has nothing to do with me. This is your fate. Zhang Yuhua is a good girl. Treat her well and don't let her down," Lin Yi reminded him with a smile. Wei Xinjin was like a different person compared to before. He believed that he and Zhang Yuhua would have a bright future. Wei Xinjin solemnly nodded in agreement and then asked about Han Jingjing's situation. Lin Yi was not interested in this topic, so he casually said a few words and stopped. Knowing that the spirit gathering branch had failed to awaken Han Jingjing, Wei Xinjin immediately felt a little upset. He knew how much effort Lin Yi had put in to obtain the spirit gathering branch. Did everything go well on the way back? Did anything happen? Lin Yi didn't want the atmosphere to be heavy, so he changed the topic. Wei Xinjin thought for a moment and said, "Nothing major happened. It was calm along the way, but I heard that shopkeeper Hong and Wei Jiating had some small verbal conflicts. This time, shopkeeper Hong came to Zhongdao. Maybe he'll be targeted by Wei Jiating." "Wei Jiating is just a clown. It's nothing great. After all, Brother Hong is a member of the Hong family. I don't think he'll have any problems." Lin Yi smiled faintly and didn't care too much. Lin Yi didn't take Emir Wei Jiating seriously at all. Although he was only the honorary vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, in terms of influence, perhaps 10 Wei Jiating were not as good as Lin Yi. No Chamber of Commerce would offend a second-level mystic stage alchemist for a vice president. With the relationship between Lin Yi and Hong Zhong, as long as the senior management of the Hong Chamber of Commerce were not stupid, they would know how to treat Hong Zhong. Unfortunately, Wei Jiating didn't seem to recognize this fact. As soon as he returned to Zhongdao, he began to visit some of the real power figures of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. The high-tech products of the Central Chamber of Commerce that he bought from the North Island were used to make friends with these people. While sending out a large number of gifts, Wei Jiating also hinted that he wanted to impeach Hong Zhong. As a strong supporter of the second branch of the Hong family, it seemed logical to deal with Hong Zhong, a supporter of the first branch, so the people of the Hong Chamber of Commerce did not find it strange. Originally, they were neutral. Under the premise that it did not affect the overall situation, they could support whoever gave more benefits. Since they had received benefits from Wei Jiating, it was not a big deal to show a little support. Although there was no clear statement, Wei Jiating was already satisfied. This time, dealing with Hong Zhong, in his opinion, was already in the bag. Now he had to strike the iron while it was hot, hold a meeting as soon as possible, and get rid of Hong Zhong completely, so as not to cause trouble. Before the sky turned dark, Wei Jiating, who was jumping up and down, completed the alliance in his mind. He immediately called for an emergency meeting in his capacity as the vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. The topic of the meeting was to remove Hong Zhong from all his duties and launch a thorough investigation on him. Everyone. When Hong Zhong was the shopkeeper of the North Island, he colluded with outsiders, engaged in malpractice for personal gains, and embezzled the interests of the Hong Chamber of Commerce into his own. If we don't get rid of this black sheep, how can we let the Hong Chamber of Commerce continue to develop? Wei Jiating stood in the conference room, waving his arms with an impassioned expression. The senior management of the Hong Chamber of Commerce who attended the meeting listened and watched expressionlessly, and no one expressed their opinion for the time being. Not only that, but Hong Zhong also colluded with outsiders and threatened me, the vice president of the headquarters, with force. This is outrageous. I'm not a vengeful person. If he could bring benefits to our Hong Chamber of Commerce, I wouldn't be calculative about such a small matter. However, his traitorous behavior not only greatly damaged the interests of our Hong Chamber of Commerce, but he also ruined our reputation. I think that even if Hong Zhong were to be stripped of all his duties, it wouldn't be able to make up for his mistake. Wei Jiating continued his performance. He was even more unscrupulous in his accusations against Hong Zhong. Anyway, he had communicated with most of the senior management. As long as more than half of them supported him, he could make Hong Zhong completely unable to make a comeback. Wei Jiating felt that he had already won, and his eyes were full of disdain and complacency as he looked at Hong Zhong. Hong Zhong, what else do you want to say? After finishing his long speech, Wei Jiating stared at Hong Zhong with a sneer. Although he was asking, his tone was no different from a conclusion. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. I, Hong Zhong, am upright and have a clear conscience. If you want to dismiss me, you don't have to talk so much nonsense. Show me the evidence, and I'll leave by myself. Hong Zhong smiled indifferently and looked at Wei Jiating disdainfully. His words were resolute, and he had an imposing manner without being angry. Chapter 60-86. You don't have to make yourself sound so great. Of course, I have the evidence. However, there is no need for me to take it out now. I believe that everyone here is quite clear about this matter. They have also seen through your character. Therefore, there is no need for us to discuss any further. We can directly give you a verdict. Wei Jiating snorted coldly and decided to avoid the strong points and attack the weak points. He wanted to take Hong Zhong down to the ground quickly. As long as more than half of the people here agreed with his suggestion, Hong Zhong's dismissal would be a done deal. Even the chairman of the Hong Consortium wouldn't be able to reverse the situation. You have the evidence but don't want to take it out? Do you think that the Hong Consortium is the property of your Wei family? Hong Zhong sneered. His simple words made Wei Jiating feel extremely uncomfortable. Most of the higher-ups of the Hong Consortium were from the Hong family. Hong Zhong's words were extremely harsh. Even the people behind Wei Jiating would inevitably feel dissatisfied. Since when did the authority of the Hong Consortium allow an outsider to dictate what to do? Would he really change his surname one day? Wei Jiating's back instantly broke out in cold sweat. Hong Zhong's obvious provocation might not be effective now, but it would plant a seed of suspicion in the hearts of the higher-ups of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Once Wei Jiating made any mistakes in the future, it would definitely be magnified by several times, or even dozens of times. Don't try to drive a wedge between us. The Hong Consortium is of course the property of the Hong family, and it will always be the property of the Hong family. Although I, Wei Jiating, do not have the surname Hong, I am wholeheartedly for the Hong Consortium. I'm not like a traitor like you. Also, I don't have the final say in your matters. It's the joint decision of everyone here. Wei Jiating loudly interrupted Hong Zhong, then cupped his fists and bowed. He said to all the higher-ups of the Hong Consortium, everyone is clear about Hong Zhong's matter. I suggest that Hong Zhong be removed from all his duties and expelled from the Hong Consortium, never to be hired again. Immediately. What do you all think? Wei Jiating felt that allowing Hong Zhong to continue speaking would only make the situation worse. Thus, he did not give him a chance to speak and directly asked the higher-ups of the Hong Consortium to express their views. To be honest, even Wei Jiating himself felt that it was child's play to dismiss a branch president so simply and crudely. However, more than half of the people here were on his side, and there were also some neutral people who had been bribed by him. Hong Zhong's people only made up a small portion, so Wei Jiating didn't care at all. It didn't matter even if he was pointing a deer at a horse. In his opinion, once this suggestion was made, it would immediately receive a large amount of support and agreement. The resolution would be passed at lightning speed, and Hong Zhong would be completely kicked out of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. This would also become a preview of the Hong Chamber of Commerce's change. As long as they could successfully get rid of Hong Zhong, the next step would be to smoothly support the person behind him to take over. Unfortunately, the expected situation did not happen. After Wei Jiating finished speaking, he waited for a full minute or two, but no one spoke. Not to mention the neutral faction, even Wei Jiating's allies had their eyes lowered. They were either focused on drinking tea or seriously studying their fingers. Unexpectedly, No one expressed any intention of supporting him. It's too hasty to make a decision on this matter now. If Vice President Wei Jiating really has any evidence against Vice President Hong, then submit it for everyone to see. The first person to speak was someone from Hong Zhong's faction, Hong Quan, an elder of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. He had originally thought that Wei Jiating was so aggressive in targeting Hong Zhong that he should have already won. Therefore, they had already given up struggling and instead considered how to protect Hong Zhong and find a chance to stage a comeback in the future. Who knew that this was not the case at all? Not a single person supported Wei Jiating's suggestion. Hong Quan instantly perked up and immediately seized the opportunity to ask Wei Jiating to produce evidence. Wei Jiating was instantly dumbfounded. If he had evidence, why would he spend so much effort to send gifts? He had asked everyone to express their views so hastily to prevent Hong Zhong's people from coming out to refute. As long as more than half of the people agreed with his suggestion, no matter how good Hong Quan was at arguing, it would be useless. Wei Jiating, this matter will be put aside for now. Go and prepare the materials and evidence to impeach Hong Zhong. Hong Zhong is not allowed to leave Middle Island during this period. Let's call it a day. What do you think? An elder from the neutral faction waved his hand expressionlessly and put forward his own suggestion. He didn't specifically target Wei Jiating, nor did he particularly help Hong Zhong. He seemed to be very fair, but Wei Jiating almost vomited blood. This bastard didn't say that when he received the gifts. Why did he turn against him in the blink of an eye? Very well, let's do that. Wei Jiating, I'll give you 3 days to prepare. Is that enough? Let's hold another meeting to discuss this matter in 3 days. Let's call it a day. This time, it was the elder from Wei Jiating's faction who spoke directly. Normally, he should unconditionally support Wei Jiating, but for some reason, he also spoke like this. Wei Jiating really wanted to cry, but had no tears. He had hastily called an impromptu meeting, but now it had become a farce. Everyone just sat down and said a few words, and then the meeting was called off. Was he in a hurry to be reincarnated? But there was no need to be in such a hurry, right? Hong Zhong was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that things would turn around suddenly. Although he didn't understand the reason, it didn't seem to be a bad thing. Without waiting for Wei Jiating's reaction, everyone stood up and began to leave. No one paid any attention to Wei Jiating, while Hong Quan and the others stared at Wei Jiating with disdain. Then, they pulled Hong Zhong and walked past him with their heads held high. Wei Jiating secretly gritted his teeth. He had no other way now. He could only figure out what had happened first. Fortunately, this matter was not over yet. 3 days later, Hong Zhong still couldn't escape the fate of being deposed. After a while, Wei Jiating quietly came to the home of his faction's elder and said with a resentful face, "What's the matter with you? Such a good opportunity to attack, but you don't come out to support me. Didn't we agree just now?" And those neutral fence-sitters, they actually accepted the gifts, but didn't do anything. It's simply outrageous. This elder was the one who spoke last just now. He was also a supporter of the second branch of the Hong family. His name was Hong Qin. After hearing Wei Jiating's complaints, he put down the teacup in his hand with a calm face and said, "What's the matter? Don't you know yourself?" "What do I know? Do I need to find you if I know?" Wei Jiating glared at Hong Qin angrily. They usually had a good relationship, so they didn't have much scruples when talking. Chapter 87. What's going on? Tell me clearly. Why are you talking in riddles here? Wei Jiating was about to go crazy. They had already reached an agreement. Why did he have to fix it again? Hong Qin didn't speak. Instead, he turned his head and waved at the maidservant standing at the side. The maidservant had already received his orders. She immediately took out a few high-tech products from Wei Jiating and placed them on the coffee table beside him. "What do you mean? You think my gifts aren't good enough?" Wei Jiating was secretly annoyed. "If you're not satisfied, you should have said so earlier. What's more, the two of us are from the same faction. Even if I didn't give you anything, you should support me unconditionally." "I don't dare. The things you gave me are too good. I don't know how to use them. You should take them back and use them yourself." Hong Qin's face turned cold. Obviously, Wei Jiating's tone made him feel very unhappy, so he began to throw a tantrum. Wei Jiating suppressed the resentment in his heart and let out a long breath. He cupped his fists slightly and said, "Hong Qin, it's not the first time we've known each other. This isn't for myself. If you continue to talk like this, I really can't communicate with you. If there's anything I did wrong, just tell me. I'll change, okay?" "That's more like it." Hong Qin snorted. His expression became slightly better. He pointed at the high-tech products and said, "The things you gave me are all things that can't be used. If we hadn't known each other for so many years, I would have thought that you were looking down on me just by giving me these useless things. Do you understand what I mean? Impossible. It's you who don't know how to use them, right?" Wei Jiating was shocked. He grabbed a digital camera and studied it over and over again. There really wasn't any reaction. "Hong Qin, did you break it? Get lost. Do I need to talk nonsense with you over such trivial things?" Hong Qin glared and scolded. He picked up his teacup and drank his tea. He didn't want to continue talking to Wei Jiating. "How could this be? You mean that the things I gave to others are also broken?" Wei Jiating didn't continue to look at the other things. Cold sweat had already appeared on his forehead. "I'm not sure about that, but it's most likely correct. Otherwise, that kind of situation wouldn't have happened just now. What did you do? It doesn't matter if we're on the same side, but if we offend those from the neutral faction, wouldn't we be sending help to the other side for no reason?" Hong Qin had a disappointed look on his face. If the neutral faction had agreed to Wei Jiating's suggestion, even if he and the others were unhappy, they would have voiced their support for the sake of the bigger picture. However, the neutral faction did not agree. Clearly, there was a problem. Wei Jiating secretly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead, thinking that it was a close shave. Luckily, Hong Qin saw the opportunity quickly and agreed to postpone Hong Zhong's matter. Otherwise, he would have really missed this opportunity. "I understand. They didn't reject my proposal on the spot, which is already giving us face. I have to deal with this matter immediately. Maybe I have to go and apologize to them one by one. I'll go first. I'll come back to you later." Wei Jiating couldn't be bothered to say more. Now that he knew the crux of the matter, he had to quickly remedy it. "Take all your junk away. Don't put them here as an eyesore." Hong Qin waved his hand and asked Wei Jiating to take back all the things he gave him. If it wasn't for the bigger picture, he really didn't want to be nice to Wei Jiating. Wei Jiating smiled bitterly, put away those things, handed them to the attendants waiting at the door, and hurried to the homes of the neutral faction to explain. After going around, it was really because these high-tech products had problems. None of them could be used. It was already very kind of them that they didn't turn against him on the spot. Wei Jiating could only smile and apologize to them one by one. He took the things back and said that he would go to the Central Chamber of Commerce to settle accounts with them. Then, he gave them gifts such as elixirs and spiritual herbs as an apology. It was already dark when he finally got all the things back. Wei Jiating didn't stop. He took a group of people and pulled 2 carts of things angrily to the Central Chamber of Commerce. Although he bought them in the North Island, it was the same to settle accounts with the Central Chamber of Commerce in the Middle Island. At this hour, the Central Chamber of Commerce hadn't closed yet, but there were not many guests. Wei Jiating came just in time. "Ask your shopkeeper to come out and see me." Wei Jiating entered the Central Chamber of Commerce and shouted at a shop assistant. The shop assistant shrunk his neck slightly. He was a native of the Middle Island and was hired by the Central Chamber of Commerce to work, so he knew Wei Jiating. He knew that this was the vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, an absolute big shot. He hurriedly put on a smile and bowed. "Yo, isn't this Vice President Wei? What brings you here? Please come in, I'll serve you tea." Wei Jiating suddenly felt much better. He nodded slightly and said, "You have a good eye. All right, don't talk nonsense with me. Hurry up and find your shopkeeper." The shop assistant was good at observing people's words and body language. He could tell that Wei Jiating was in a bad mood and seemed to be looking for trouble. As a small shop assistant, he really couldn't bear the responsibility, so he didn't talk nonsense. He carefully excused himself and quickly went in to report the situation. Wei Jiating waved his hand and asked the people who followed him to unload the things and pile them in the lobby of the Central Chamber of Commerce. This guy was still a little annoyed. He felt that he should have come during the day. There were more people at that time, and it would have been more threatening. But now that he was here, there was no reason to go back and wait for tomorrow. He could only do this for now. Just as the things were unloaded, the shop assistant quickly ran out with a young man. If Lin Yi was here, he would naturally recognize that it was Kong Mingming, whose position in the Chamber of Commerce was second only to Zhong Pingliang. But Wei Jiating didn't know who Kong Mingming was. He only felt that the Central Chamber of Commerce sent such a young guy here and didn't take him, the vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, seriously at all. Vice President Wei? What business do you have with our Central Chamber of Commerce? Kong Mingming saw that the lobby was filled with the goods of the Central Chamber of Commerce. He could guess some of Wei Jiating's purpose, so he proudly cupped his hands in greeting. This guy always wanted to show off when he had nothing to do. Now that he had something to do, he naturally couldn't miss the opportunity. As for the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he really didn't care about it. What is the Central Chamber of Commerce selling? I'm the vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. You actually dare to fool me with a batch of defective goods? Do you think that the Central Chamber of Commerce has reached the point where it can bully its customers? Wei Jiating's face darkened. He couldn't be bothered to ask who this arrogant guy was. He directly pointed at the pile of things and asked. Chapter 60-88. The shop assistant was startled and hurriedly said with an apologetic smile, Vice President Wei, what shopkeeper Kong is trying to say is there a misunderstanding here. As far as we know, we haven't sold a lot of goods to you recently. I wonder if you can provide us with the purchase receipt so that we can check it? In fact, Kong Mingming was not the real shopkeeper of the Central Chamber of Commerce. He was just a part-time manager for a period of time, so this shop assistant rushed to speak. After all, they were the ones doing the business. If they offended a big customer, Kong Mingming could turn around and leave, but they couldn't be so unrestrained. Naturally, they had to nip it in the bud. Kong Mingming glared at the shop assistant discontentedly, but after thinking about it, what he said made sense. First, check if there is any problem with the receipt of the vice president. If they dared to blackmail the Central Chamber of Commerce, he would teach them a lesson and let them know why the flowers were so red. Wei Jiating was prepared. He took out the receipt issued by the North Island Central Chamber of Commerce and shook it. He pointed to the date on it and said, Look carefully. It's your Chamber of Commerce, right? Although it was bought in the North Island, you promised that all branches would be the same. Kong Mingming grabbed the receipt, looked through it casually, and threw it back to Wei Jiating. Okay, since you have the receipt, I'll help you check if there's any problem. Wei Jiating's face darkened. This bastard was too arrogant. How could he be a shopkeeper with such an attitude? Why hadn't the Central Chamber of Commerce closed down? If the Hong's Chamber of Commerce had such a shopkeeper, he would have caught him and killed him 100 times. Unless the arrogant person was his man, it would be a different story. Kong Mingming told the shop assistant to find a maintenance staff. Because the Central Chamber of Commerce sold goods from the secular world, it also trained many talents in this field. Most of these people were people who couldn't practice or had extremely low levels of practice. Being able to get a decent job in the Central Chamber of Commerce, they naturally treasured it. Compared to Kong Xiaoming, who came from the common world, they were much more professional. Soon, the shop assistant hurried over with a middle-aged man. He put down the toolbox in his hand and began to repair it. Wei Jiating originally wanted to lose his temper. But now, he couldn't say anything, so he could only wait patiently. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the result came out. Shopkeeper Kong, Vice President Wei, there's a problem with this batch of goods. All the chips have been pierced by static electricity, causing the goods to be damaged. It'll be quite troublesome to repair them. Furthermore, this is not our Chamber of Commerce's responsibility, so we don't have to bear any costs. The middle-aged man packed up his tools and cupped his fists at Kong Mingming and Wei Jiating. Kong Mingming immediately became complacent. He laughed and looked at Wei Jiating. Vice President Wei, did you hear that? You broke something, and now you want to blackmail our Central Chamber of Commerce? Do you really think that our Central Chamber of Commerce is easy to bully? Bullshit. Do you think I would blackmail you for something like this? It is clear that your Central Chamber of Commerce sold defective goods to me, and you still refuse to admit it. This guy is also one of your people. No matter what he says, of course he's on your side. Do you really think I'm stupid? Wei Jiating exploded. He jumped up and pointed at Kong Mingming as he roared. Wei Jiating didn't know what static electricity was. Anyway, he was sure that the Central Chamber of Commerce sold him defective goods. He had to vent his anger no matter what. Otherwise, as the vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, how could he continue to stay in Middle Island? You idiot, do you think you're so smart? You want to use this kind of trick to ruin our Central Chamber of Commerce's reputation? What a joke. Kong Mingming didn't back down. He also jumped up and pointed at Wei Jiating as he scolded. Kong Mingming suddenly felt that Wei Jiating was jealous of the Central Chamber of Commerce's business. That's why he wanted to use this kind of method to destroy it. If he could settle this matter, it would be a great achievement. Maybe the higher-ups would be happy and let him lead Zhongpingliang. Kong Mingming originally wanted to find some trouble. Now that he had this idea, he couldn't stop himself. He hoped that Wei Jiating would quickly make a move so that he could take the opportunity to make a name for himself. Wei Jiating didn't know what Kong Mingming was thinking.
He was so angry that he laughed.
He waved his hand and got his men to surround Kong Mingming and the others. Kong, if you don't give me an explanation today, don't blame me for being impolite. What's the Central Chamber of Commerce? Why don't you find out what's the status of Middle Island's Hong Chamber of Commerce? How dare you trick us? You really don't know how to spell the word death. Wei Jiating laughed coldly and stared at Kong Mingming. The Central Chamber of Commerce's business was good in Middle Island. However, they had never shown any outstanding strength. The original Chamber of Commerce tolerated them because they didn't have any conflict of interest with the Central Chamber of Commerce's products. Otherwise, they would have joined forces to suppress the Central Chamber of Commerce. Now, Wei Jiating felt that he should represent the old Chamber of Commerce in Middle Island to teach the Central Chamber of Commerce how to behave. They shouldn't think that they could bully the old Chamber of Commerce just because their business was good. However, Kong Mingming wasn't shocked. Wei Jiating's reaction was exactly what he wanted. He was just worried that he didn't have an excuse to make a name for himself. Now, it came straight to his doorstep. Wei Jiating, you dare to come to our Central Chamber of Commerce and behave atrociously. It seems that you know how to spell the word death. Fine, I'll leave a deeper impression on you today. Kong Mingming laughed and clapped his hands 3 times. In an instant, 10 figures suddenly rushed out from every corner of the Central Chamber of Commerce and surrounded Wei Jiating and his men. Before they could react, they directly launched an attack. Wei Jiating was shocked. Just as he got into a defensive posture, the followers he brought with him had already fallen to the ground. They didn't have the slightest ability to resist. Kong, you dare to attack me? All the big Chamber of Commerce in Middle Island won't let go of your Central Chamber of Commerce. Wei Jiating roared loudly. Unfortunately, it didn't have any effect on Kong Mingming. He had the power in his hands. If he wasn't happy, he could beat him up. Kong Mingming laughed strangely and joined the encirclement. While the masters of the Central Chamber of Commerce besieged Wei Jiating, he also went up to give them a few punches and kicks. His mood suddenly became indescribably comfortable. Wei Jiating was speechless. He could only groan and roll on the ground with his head in his hands. He really did not expect that the people from the Central Chamber of Commerce would dare to attack him so openly. Was there still any law? Chapter 60-89. As the vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he was thrown onto the street like a dead dog. It was really embarrassing. Wei Jia covered his face and lay on the ground, looking at the door of the Central Chamber of Commerce slowly closing. He swore in his heart that he would definitely get revenge. Whether it was the Central Chamber of Commerce or that bastard Kong, he would kill them all. Because of this, Wei Jia went back to his backer in the Hong Chamber of Commerce and complained tearfully. He raised Kong Mingming's behavior to the level of the Central Chamber of Commerce's hostility and contempt towards the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Then, the Hong Chamber of Commerce really started to take action against the Central Chamber of Commerce, and both sides entered a state of hostility. However, these were all things that happened later. At this point in time, Lin Yi had no idea that a small action of his would have such serious consequences. If he had known, he would definitely have advised Wei Jia to buy a few carts of things from the Central Chamber of Commerce at this moment. Lin Yi was setting up a formation in the Tiandan Pavilion. In order to ensure that it would still be safe when he left Middle Island, Lin Yi took great pains. With the help of the ghost, he set up several level 6 defense formations, trapping formations, illusion formations, killing formations, and so on for the Tiandan Pavilion. If it weren't for the fact that he could only buy the formation flags for the Mystic level formation, he would have asked the ghost to set up the Earth level formation. Fortunately, within the range of Middle Island, there were enough level 6 formations. Especially since these level 6 formations were formed by the ghost's combination of his own formation skills and the 1000 amplification formation. Even an Earth level formation master would not be able to easily crack these formations. It was definitely more than enough to protect the Tiandan Pavilion. Through these few days of learning and assisting in setting up the formation, Lin Yi's formation skills had also made great progress. Even without the ghost, he was already a genuine Mystic level formation master, which was quite impressive. Lin Yi, when are you going to the South Continent? Tian Chan took the control formation flag from Lin Yi and pretended to ask casually. Lang Guza and the others had been gone for a few days. Lin Yi obviously set up the formation to ensure the safety of the Tiandan Pavilion, which meant that he already had the idea of leaving. Lin Yi pondered for a moment and shook his head slightly. In a few days, there may be new news from the secular world. The day he received the reply, Lin Yi sent another letter to the common world. Perhaps there would be a reply in a few days. They didn't have any news about Han Jingjing last time, but maybe they would this time? In addition to Han Jingjing's matters, Lin Yi was not idle these days. He was also asking about the transit station, as well as the whereabouts of Rock Candy, Song Ling Rui, and the others. He had been on Heavenly Island for several years, and they had never appeared. Lin Yi had wandered around the islands, but he had not heard any news. There was an organization in the Middle Island that specialized in collecting and selling information. Lin Yi had not paid attention to it before, but when he visited Okuta's state, he heard about it and immediately issued various tasks. What Lin Yi did not lack now was spirit jades. After spending a lot, all the tasks he issued became the most important and urgent. No matter what news he got, it was a happy situation for both sides. Tian Chan nodded and showed a faint smile on her face. She was naturally happy that Lin Yi could stay for a few more days. When Lin Yi finished setting up the formation of the Tiandan Pavilion, the medicine sect on the opposite side was discussing how to deal with Lin Yi. Zheng Dongsheng, Zheng Dongjue, and Zheng Tianqing were all present. This time, the Zheng family did not suffer heavy losses on the extreme North Island, but they definitely did not gain much. The only consolation was that the few elixirs refined by Lin Yi were very good, which could be considered to have made up for part of the loss. Lin Yi has already soared to the sky. I think it's better not to provoke him for the time being. Moreover, with the Hainan Dan, our focus should also lean towards the East Continent. When we return to the East Continent, a mere Tiandan Pavilion is nothing to worry about. Zheng Dongsheng had obviously shifted his attention to how to curry favor with Zhuang Yifan, so he was very unwilling to continue to oppose Lin Yi, lest there be more complications. Cousin, what you're saying is wrong. Did you forget what Zhuang Yifan said in his letter? He and Lin Yi are obviously connected. How can a mere Hainan Dan compare to Lin Yi? If we don't solve the problem, even if you return to the East Continent, I'm afraid you can't escape from the shadow of Lin Yi. Zheng Dongjue sneered. He did not dare to provoke Lin Yi now, but it was certainly impossible for Zheng Dongsheng to leave without doing anything. Zheng Dongsheng's face suddenly turned ugly. How could he not remember Zhuang Yifan's reply? There was only one sentence in the letter, which was extremely shocking and concise. Fuck you. Hearing Zheng Dongjue's words, he really felt a little uncertain. Did he really have to get rid of Lin Yi first? Grandpa's Lin Yi is actually not a big deal. If we are not a match for him openly, then we can act secretly. I don't believe that this guy has no flaws. Among the three, Zheng Tianqing had the most resentment towards Lin Yi, so he was also the most determined to deal with Lin Yi. In particular, this guy already had a powerful organization behind him. Even the northernmost island was almost destroyed by the organization, so what was a mere Lin Yi? After knowing that he would be the focus of the organization's training, Zheng Tianqing's confidence soared. The so-called action in the dark was just a pretense of modesty because it was not convenient to say it directly. This matter should be discussed at length, or according to the previous plan, we should slowly cut off Lin Yi's wings. Zheng Dongsheng waved his hand and proposed a safe plan. This time, they did not look for Tong Woli to discuss with them. In fact, they felt that there was nothing to discuss. After all, it was just a few words. Zheng Dongjue could not come up with any good ideas at the moment, so he could only nod in agreement. At this moment, someone touched the restriction of the secret room, as if there was something urgent. Zheng Tianqing opened the restriction and walked out. He saw a disciple of the medicine sect standing respectfully outside and asked with a slight impatience, "What's the matter? Don't you know that we are discussing important matters here?" "Greetings, young master, I know my mistake." However, shopkeeper Kong Mingming of the Central Chamber of Commerce came to visit and asked to see you, young master. He said that there is a very urgent matter, so... The disciple of the medicine sect cupped his fists and bowed, slightly nervous. Kong Mingming of the Central Chamber of Commerce? I don't know him. What urgent matter could there be? Moreover, it is so late now. Tell him to come tomorrow if he has something to do. Zheng Tianqing frowned slightly and did not want to talk to Kong Mingming. Chapter 6090. There was basically no hope for Dan Hall. If he didn't make new allies, medicine sect wouldn't be able to deal with Lin Yi. Zheng Tianqing thought about it and agreed. He wouldn't lose anything if he met them. He might as well go and take a look. All right, second grandpa, I'll go and take a look. We'll talk about what happened just now later. Zheng Tianqing cupped his fist and walked to the front hall. Kong Mingming was in a good mood after beating up Wei Jia. He was drinking tea in the medicine sect's hall and didn't show any impatience. He came to find Zheng Tianqing because he had a mission. To Kong Mingming, the more missions he had, the better. That way, he could accumulate merits. Who knows? He might be able to surpass Zhong Pingliang one day. Zheng Tianqing walked into the hall and saw that Kong Mingming seemed younger than him. He looked down on him and nodded at him indifferently as a greeting. Shopkeeper Kong, right? Why are you looking for me? Zheng Tianqing sat down proudly. As for the idea of finding an ally, he threw it to the back of his mind. Even if he wanted to find an ally, he had to have the upper hand in terms of momentum first. Only then would he be in an advantageous position in the alliance. You're Zheng Tianqing? You don't look like much. Kong Mingming was unhappy with Zheng Tianqing's attitude. Who did this guy think he was? He dared to be so arrogant in front of him. Zheng Tianqing's face darkened and he snorted. What do you mean? Are you here to make fun of me? Is being the shopkeeper of the Central Chamber of Commerce that great? All right, I won't talk nonsense with you. The higher-ups said that you are worth training, so they sent me here to guide you. But looking at you, it seems like you don't think much of my guidance. Kong Xiaoming chuckled and took a sip from his teacup. This feeling of being pretentious wasn't bad at all. Higher PS? Could it be that you are? Zheng Tianqing's face changed slightly and his eyes showed a hint of surprise. His contact with the organization was mostly through long-distance communication. Even if they met, he didn't really see their faces. If Kong Mingming was really sent by the organization, it would be Zheng Tianqing's first time seeing him in person. As long as you know, you performed very well on the far north island, so the organization asked me to focus on training you after you came back. Kong Mingming waved his hand, with a calm look on his face, but in his heart, he was secretly proud. I didn't know it was Shopkeeper Kong. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you. Zheng Tianqing seemed to have a spring installed on his buttocks. He jumped up in an instant, bowed, cupped his fists, and approached Kong Mingming with a big smile on his face to ask for forgiveness. Although it was just a few words, Zheng Tianqing was sure that Kong Mingming was definitely a member of that mysterious organization. No matter what his position was, he was much stronger than a newcomer like him, so he did not dare to slight him. Kong Mingming wasn't surprised at all. He put down the teacup in his hand and nodded. Then he waved his hand casually and said, "You don't have to be so polite. Let's sit down and talk. Shopkeeper Kong is a distinguished guest. Please take a seat." Zheng Tianqing bowed with a flattering smile and respectfully asked Kong Mingming to change his seat, trying to erase the bad impression he had when he first came in. No. After all, this is the place of your medicine sect. It's not good for me to be a noisy guest. Sit down quickly and talk about business. Kong Mingming was very satisfied with the change of Zheng Tianqing's attitude. He pretended to be very generous and continued to show off happily. Zheng Tianqing didn't dare to continue to disobey, but it was not good for him to sit back. So, he simply sat down in the chair next to Kong Mingming and asked respectfully, "Shopkeeper Kong, why did you come back to help me?" Here's the thing. We know the situation of the medicine sect in the Middle Island quite well. Originally, what happened to you had nothing to do with us. But now that we are all on the same side, we should help you more or less. Kong Mingming said with a big smile, as if he really came to give a lot of benefits to the medicine sect. Zheng Tianqing didn't know how to answer, so he could only nod and say some empty words like thanks. Kong Mingming didn't continue to talk nonsense. He opened the cloth bag beside him, revealing a delicate elixir furnace inside, and there was a tablet as a display screen on it.
See?
This is the artifact that can change the situation of your medicine sect. Kong Mingming smiled mysteriously. He bent his index finger and gently tapped on the elixir furnace twice, making a clear buzzing sound. "Shopkeeper Kong, what kind of artifact is this?" Zheng Tianqing hurriedly cooperated and asked, but he was a little disdainful in his heart. "Isn't it just an ordinary elixir furnace and a tablet of the Central Chamber of Commerce? Is it an innovative artifact? Hey, if I don't tell you, you won't be able to guess what kind of artifact it is. Come on, I'll show you directly and let you broaden your horizons." Kong Mingming had a sense of superiority in his heart. He directly took out the materials of a 5th-grade recover pill and was ready to refine it on the spot. Zheng Tianqing was also an alchemist, so he naturally knew the use of these materials. He didn't say anything at the moment, but just smiled and watched Kong Mingming operate. Before he figured out the strangeness of this elixir furnace, he really didn't know what to say. Kong Mingming moved very quickly. He opened the tablet on the elixir furnace and selected the formula of the 5th-grade recover pill from many elixir names. Then he used his genuine qi to transform the elixir fire and began to refine the elixir. The alchemy curve of the 5th-grade recover pill appeared on the screen of the tablet. Every time there was a change, there would be a prompt sound, and the temperature of the elixir fire would be automatically adjusted. There was no need for Kong Mingming to worry at all. All he needed to do was to steadily transfer the genuine qi. In the process of alchemy, Kong Mingming even had the leisure to chat with Zheng Tianqing. After more than 2 hours, the tablet made a clear sound, and the 5th-grade recover pill was completed.
See?
This is the alchemy artifact I'm going to give you. All elixirs below the 5th-grade yellow level can be refined with this automatic alchemy artifact. The only thing you need is a practitioner who can convert genuine qi to elixir fire and continuously transfer genuine qi to maintain the elixir fire. Kong Mingming opened the elixir furnace, took out the 5th-grade recover pill, and proudly presented it to Zheng Tianqing. Zheng Tianqing's heart was like a stormy sea, and his whole body was a little sluggish. This completely subverted his previous common sense of alchemy. In just a little more than 2 hours, he could easily refine a high-grade 5th-grade recover pill. It was really hard for him to accept. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.